Super Dimension Interview. The opening interview with Thanos. Chapter 181. Then, all the people on Earth were in an uproar. How is this possible? Hasn't this demon queen been bewitching and forcing Rosé? How could she die for Rosé? This demon, has she really fallen in love with Rosé? Demons can also have true love. This is simply impossible, but there is no other explanation. On the Grand Canyon, Rose clenched her fists, her heart seemed to be pierced by thousands of needles, her emotions were extremely complicated, impossible. She is the demon queen Morgana. She has always wanted to use me, my space-time genes. How could she do this for me? Dukao sighed. That demon killed him and slaughtered the people of the earth. His crime was not. But she would actually give up her life to save her daughter. The demon queen, doing whatever she wants. He finally understood the meaning of doing whatever she wants. Demon, angel, it's just a thought away for her. Jie Shaolun felt cold in his heart. Although he and Chiangwei haven't reached that stage yet, he feels like he's been cheated. Outside Demon No. 1. Carl stared at all this in amazement, as if struck by lightning, and everything went black in front of his eyes. After transforming himself into a phantom, he hasn't felt the existence of emotions for a long time. But now, the feeling is so strong. How is it possible? How could Liang Bing die? How could she die for love? Carl's character was extremely cold. In Carl's eyes, all other lives except his own universe were just data. The only person he couldn't bear to hurt was Liang Bing. But she died because of the black hole engine he gave to Hua Yi. He murmured, is there really such a thing as destiny in this universe? Is there really such a thing as retribution? At this time he had to believe in this metaphysics. And Keisha was so shocked that she almost fell off the throne. At the last moment of her life, Morgana turned back into Liang Bing. Although she had thought about this scene, she showed mercy when fighting Morgana that time, because she really wanted to see this scene. But when she really saw this scene happen, it was still unbelievable. This future is too magical. Morgana, who has not changed for tens of thousands of years, turned back into an angel because of one person. The one-winged angel guards were also extremely shocked. Some people looked at Morgana and couldn't imagine that the demon who had fought with them for tens of thousands of years would do such a thing. Isn't this kind of noble thing only angels can do? Some people looked up at the sky. Angel Yan, although Yi Bai said before that after the queen's death, Angel Yan took over the throne of the queen. But after seeing it with my own eyes, it is still unbelievable. And at that moment, she really showed the combat power of the king. Not only did she escape the shackles of the black hole, but she even possessed unlimited thunder power. How could Angel Yan be so strong? Angel Leng snorted at Angel Yan. Ruo Ning was her master, but in the future Angel Yan actually killed her. Although Ruo Ning followed the legendary Hua Yi and it seemed that she did not do anything good, he was her master after all. Angel Leng was still a little sad to see her die. At this time, Keisha said, Carl, when you handed the black hole engine to Hua Yi, did you ever think that this situation would happen? This sentence pierced Carl like a sharp knife, causing his phantom to fluctuate. Above the distant stars, Hua Yi also saw this scene. Then his head banged. Me, Keisha is going to kill me. In addition to the Earth, there is also a live broadcast room here. He has been watching this interview. He does not think that his future self is wrong. Since Kesha is dead, the angels are leaderless, and it is natural for him to be the king. In addition to Kesha and himself, who else is qualified to command the angels? Angel Yan, that yellow-haired girl. So funny. But Kesha doesn't think so. If Kesha knew that she might die, she would definitely kill herself before she died. Ronning was also furious. Liang Bing, that fool, would actually die for love. What kind of demon king is this? I'm laughing to death. But, I was killed by Angel Yan. Can a mere one-winged Angel Yan kill me? Queen Kesha, how biased you are. Then she looked at Hua Yi. Well, what should we do now? She could think of what Hua Yi could think of. Hua Yi said, I will wait for Kesha here, and she can kill me if she wants. I am Hua Yi. I will not run around in the universe like a wild dog and be hunted to death by her. It sounds heroic, but he knows that if Kesha wants to kill him, he can't escape the comment section. Happy Star God aha. The love-hate relationship between humans and demons, the demons who die for love, I just like this contrast. More. Uchiha Madara. I'm so. You are a good devil, you are bewitching people, aren't you? You are really here, right? You really love people. Hanabi. Morgana, I am really curious, how many faces do you have? The Joker. Boring. Tsunade. Whether good or evil, Morgana is really charming. Homelander. She is definitely beautiful, and she is tens of thousands of years old. 11. Tathagata. This woman has Buddha nature, and should be saved by Buddhism. Laojun. Although the laws of nature are the order of the universe, and yin and yang are in harmony, it is rare for good to come out of evil. Walter. If a bad person does a good thing, it will not change the fact that she is a bad person. But to be honest, this choice surprised me. But Ms. Morgana, if you had not gone to destroy the black hole, but let it swallow you too directly, you may still be able to survive. Iron Man. How do you know? Walter. I have been swallowed by a black hole, so I know. The audience was shocked. This guy rarely speaks, but it was unexpected that this tough guy could survive after being swallowed by a black hole. In the live broadcast room, Morgana and his demon subordinates were also dumbfounded. The sword demon Atua wailed at the top of his lungs, "Queen, you can't do this. No matter what happens in the future, you can't do this. You have to live, no matter what happens you have to live." Morgana touched her face and suddenly laughed. "It's me, you see, the devil's love is always hotter than that of an angel." Of course she could see that her future self was deeply in love with Rose, not just because of the time and space gene. She really fell in love with Rose. She liked this future very much. Yi Bai said. "Then do you want to answer my previous question again? Will you regret killing Dukao and invading the Earth in the future?" Morgana raised her hand. I regret it. I regret doing this, making Chiangwei sad, and making her hate me for the rest of her life. It's just one planet, if you don't want it, then don't want it. But Carl, what the hell are you thinking about handing over the black hole engine to Hua Yi, this male dog? Hearing Morgana's question, Carl remained silent. Yi Bai clicked on the special guests and invited Carl into the live broadcast room. Carl's eyes showed horror again. Before it was Keisha, and now it's this host, how did they do it? Changing their positions so easily. I didn't feel anything unusual at all. This is definitely not the power of the void. What kind of power and knowledge is this? Morgana was angry. I'm asking you a question. You can't make a fart with 3 sticks. Facing Morgana's question, Carl just laughed. At this time, Yi Bai said, Mr. Carl, I actually have a question that I'm curious about. What on earth are you doing all this for? Carl's eyes showed a rare look of reminiscence. Why? Let me think about it. I haven't thought about this question for a long time. When I discovered the existence of the ultimate void, I was determined to solve the mystery of the void. It was not until Liang Bing and I went to the ruins of Pengu civilization that I was sure of the existence of ultimate fear. From that time on, I was thinking about how to fight them. But to fight against the void, we must understand the void, but we cannot touch the void at all. If we cannot touch it, how can we understand it? Then I thought, the void is something we cannot understand, so it can exist in things we cannot understand. The things in the universe that we cannot understand at all are, first, the edge of the universe, and second, black holes. So I proposed at the super seminary to use a large number of stars to cool down the black hole. But my suggestion was not adopted. And after that, Liang Bing and I were expelled from the super seminary, and then the angels expelled the super seminary. Yi Bai understood and said, so you care so much about Reina. It's because Reina is the light of the sun. When she grows to her full form and can drive stars, you can then realize your idea and use stars to cool black holes. So you can build a black hole engine just to study black holes. Collect data. On the Liang star, Pan Zhen was furious when he saw this. Carl, this fool, has a thief's heart. It seems that I have to go to the Earth. With Kesha here, this time I will directly encircle and destroy this guy on the Earth to avoid future troubles. Hua Yi was even more furious. This actually used me as an experiment. In the live broadcast room, Carl nodded, and a rare look of joy appeared in his eyes. Because he found that this host actually understood him. Yi Bai said, Besides this, what other attempts have you made to understand the void? Carl. Later, I went to the Styx galaxy. At that time, I thought of another thing. There is another thing that we don't understand. That is death. So I caused a lot of death in the Styx galaxy. Yi Bai asked. Massive deaths. How many? Carl frowned and said. I don't remember, probably about 1 or 200 planets. 1 or 200 planets. Since when did the quantifier of death become planet? Upon hearing this, all the people on Earth had their hairs on their backs. The comments section exploded again, and the activity level reached 100%. Homelander. I thought I was bad enough, but when I compare myself to you, I think I'm as kind as a kindergarten child. Superman. You are so crazy and inhumane, you deserve to die. The fact that Superman issued a death declaration shows how angry he is. Iron Man. You deserve to die. If you want to study death, why don't you try it yourself? Go die yourself. Batman. You crazy people, why are there so many crazy people in this world? Tsunade. You are even crazier and more inhumane than Orochimaru. Orochimaru. Zhongli. He is an evil demon who must be killed. You should know that Teyvat is just a planet, and this man slaughtered the lives of dozens of planets just to study the so-called void. Too crazy. Too evil. Tathagata. Such an evil demon must fall into the 18 levels of hell. Tathagata couldn't stand it anymore, and now he also understood what the planets these people were talking about. March 7th. You lunatics, what do you think human life is? Seeing this comment, Carl said, Miss March 7, since gods are just a piece of information, a piece of data, aren't ordinary people the same? You deleted a few pieces of data while playing games. Is this a sin? Haida. In theory, carbon-based life is just a pile of proteins, and silicon-based life is just a pile of scrap metal. Doesn't that count as life? Madmen can always find excuses to go crazy. Haida was so angry. Jing Yuan. Such evil demons, I wish I could rashly attack them with the Cloud Riders. Galaxy Batman. Calling you a beast is an insult to beasts. In the live broadcast room. Yi Bai asked again. Then what did you find? Principal Carl. Of course, I used the big clock to find void matter in death. This shows that my idea is correct. The void may exist outside the black hole, above death. Walter. I can tell you that there are no void creatures behind the black hole. I have been in there for tens of thousands of years. Carl. It's a pity that I didn't get to know you earlier and exchange more knowledge with you. But I believe that the difference between our universes is why you don't find void creatures behind black holes. Then there must be in my world. Yi Bai said. But Keisha also created the void engine, she didn't kill so many people. Carl laughed and said. No. How many wars did the angel civilization start? Of course you can say they are different from me because they are fighting for justice, but at least the process is the same. Kill. At this point, Carl sighed. I have been desperately pursuing the void, but at this time, I have forgotten why I am pursuing the void. Now that I think about it, my goal should have changed. It is to surpass everything, become a void creature, and achieve true eternity. Yi Bai smiled. Do you think there is true eternity in this world? After all, even the universe has its lifespan. Carl said. I believe it does. Yi Bai said. You are so sure, you really have discovered something. Can you open the void? Carl said. In theory, it is almost there, but I haven't tried it yet. I don't have enough computing power now, and I don't know enough about black holes and death. Yi Bai smiled and said, how about I help you? I also want to see what this void is. As it happens, I know a lot of people who know a lot about black holes. As soon as these words came out, the whole world exploded again. Morgana was anxious. Don't go crazy. If you want to say who is most afraid of the void here, it is naturally her. Yi Bai actually wants to summon the void directly, of course she panicked. Even Keisha's eyes on the side changed several times. After all, she and Carl and others have different understandings of the void. If Yi Bai can really let them see the void, then who is right and who is wrong will be clear at a glance. This is not the key point. She is not afraid of being wrong. It is normal to be wrong on the road of science. However, according to her understanding of the void, if there are really void creatures, she is afraid that she can't bear it now. She also collected void matter and created a void cause, but compared with the real void, I am afraid it is still a long way away. I just don't know if my newly studied theory of cosmic movement can handle it. Hearing Morgana's words, Yi Bai said, there is a saying that goes, you have to understand the enemy before you can defeat the enemy. You know nothing about the void, and everything is just speculation. How can you defeat the enemy like this? Yi Bai wants to change the future of this world. But the biggest variable in this world is the void, so why not let you see what it is first? Morgana was anxious. We have to be prepared, at least the space-time gene. Yi Bai shook his head and said, there is no time. Do you think that if I don't summon void here, void will not appear? Then the scene changed again. Carl, wearing a black robe, stood in the sky and said, no one can stop the wheel of history. The power of the void will completely eliminate the wars and conflicts that fill the world. Life will be eternal and the universe will return to purity. Liang Bing, the future will definitely be bright. Under him was the earth, where countless people had turned into fireflies. The elderly, children, women, and soldiers were all spared. A hoarse wail came from the crowd. These are not ordinary enemies at all, not even aliens. How are we supposed to fight? Then everyone saw that Lena, the future lord of the fiery sun, was also decomposed. Finally, Zhao Xin, Lu Chuang, Qilin, all the members of the hero company were turned into ashes. Pan Zhen, who had just arrived here, saw this scene, his face fell directly, and he gritted his teeth and said, Carl, you will not leave here alive today. Above the sky, countless spaceships fell. There were Teoti, some from the fiery sun star, and some from angels. Even Angel Yan saw his sky blade number 7 falling from the sky. The only one who could still stand on the ground to resist decomposition was Zhe Xiaolun. He held the great sword in his hand and half knelt on the ground. Carl said to him, the known universe is nothing more than a cage of gods. Only by breaking away from the shackles of the body can the soul be eternal. Let's witness the coming of the void together. Then the space above him split open, revealing an extremely dark void. Zhe Xiaolun roared, eternity without life is nonsense. The ultimate fear. Heroic company, fight. A layer of flames covered his wings, and he flew towards Carl. And in the void, a vague figure finally appeared. The picture froze here. The earth was dead silent again. If the previous invasion of aliens made them extremely terrified, and now the arrival of this void makes them completely desperate. Is this an enemy we can deal with? Is the earth finished? On the giant canyon, everyone looked at Zhe Xiaolun. Dukao said, the power of the galaxy, the long sword that cuts through fear, it seems that my future depends on you. After all, the power of the galaxy is the only existence that can confront Carl in the future picture. It seems that all resources must be poured into Zhe Xiaolun to help him grow. Zhe Xiaolun's head roared. Rely on me. But I really don't know what I should do now. I don't understand anything now. The comment area is still exploding. Tianli. Another lunatic who wants to destroy the world. Why are there so many lunatics in this world? Aizen. Why does this sound a little familiar to me? By the way, Yuwatch seems to have said the same thing. Is it fun to say such nonsense that you don't even believe in yourself? Iron Man. Oh, Thanos, does it look familiar to you? Thanos. Everything I do is just to bring balance to the universe. Look at this guy's posture. He wants to kill everyone. He is not one of a kind. Batman. It's like this again. It's like this again. Give yourself an extremely good excuse, and then use this excuse to do the most evil thing. You crazy people are all the same when you are crazy. Walter. Every time I hear such remarks, I feel like throwing up. Laojun. In the name of saving the world, doing things that destroy the world, you are also a big devil. Lu Pijang. Others live quietly on their own planet, how can it offend you? Galaxy Batman. What kind of hatred and grudge do you guys have with this world? In the live broadcast room. Carl's face was full of joy. It turns out that I really did it. Is this what my original ideal was? Morgana looked at him and cursed. I knew you were crazy, but I didn't know you were so crazy. Carl shook his head and said, I thought you were the only one in the world who could understand me, but who would have thought that you couldn't understand? I don't want to destroy the world, but to let everyone enter eternity. Yi Bai said, we can't just talk about this kind of thing. Let the void come once, and we will know whether it will make everyone eternal. I won't let you open the void with a large number of deaths. But it is still possible to use a black hole. Ju, can you come and help me? Ju. Who? Hearing this, Huang Quan's eyes widened. Do you want to? You can't do this, his appearance alone is a disaster that swallows everything. Huang Quan has actually been looking at the light screen, but she has a dull personality and rarely speaks. Sha Jin said, I think I understand, the host wants to help them solve the void. I thought the host would not care about anything else except interviews. It seems that the host really loves this world. At this moment, a huge black shadow appeared in the sky above the earth. Just his appearance made everyone tremble with fear. Everyone felt the power that could devour everything. Then, the black shadow turned into a middle-aged man with a pair of uneven eyes, who was extremely decadent and stepped into the live broadcast room. That was the Void Star God 9. Yi Bai invited him to this world through the guest invitation of the live broadcast room. In this world, the gifts given by the Star God can exert about 50% of their abilities, which means that the laws of the two worlds are 50% similar. Then it should be simple for 9 to open a door to the void. Huang Quan. Is this the sleeping formless one? He actually has his own will and can even transform into a human form. This is beyond Huang Quan's imagination. In her eyes, although the Void Star God exists, it is just a phenomenon, not a life. But now it proves that she is wrong. Fortunately, Yi Bai gave her an anchor, otherwise, under this kind of mental shock, she might become unpredictable. Joyful Star God Aha. 9. I finally see you, let's have a good chat. In conclusion, if nothingness itself has no meaning, you will not exist. If nothingness has meaning, then why does nothingness exist? Aha has harassed all the known star gods, except nothingness. Not only because the fate of the star god nothingness is almost completely opposite to his, but this guy never pays attention to anyone, not even any star god. So Aha will deceive some people from time to time, let them find nothingness, and prove to nothingness that life itself is meaningful, but it's useless. Sometimes even he doubts whether nothingness has its own will. Now, he has seen nothingness, and even appears in human form, so he will naturally do what he has always wanted to do, to make nothingness believe that the existence of life itself is meaningful. Not only him, but other star gods are also curious about nothingness, and they ask questions one after another in order to debate with nothingness, but nothingness ignores them. Aizen, who is this person? He asked the voice of many viewers, and then Huang Quan gave the answer. The audience was surprised. Morgana's hair stood on end. A celestial level life, or a black hole spirit, you brought this thing to our world. The Tathagata. So that's how it is. There is no Buddha Dharma in your world. You don't know that all things are impermanent, all dharmas are without self, all defilements are suffering, and nirvana is tranquility. Naturally, you can't understand the void. Laojun. Haha. All things are impermanent, they are the law of birth and death. Birth and death are gone, and extinction is happiness. This nothingness is different from your essence. You say emptiness, but it is nothingness. It seems similar, but the difference in essence is huge. The two big guys started to debate again, and Yi Bai ignored them. He couldn't understand it anyway. He said to nothingness, 9, help me. The star god of nothingness stared at Yi Bai with a pair of big and small eyes, but he could do nothing. Aha is right, because there is existence, nothingness has meaning. Nothingness is not meaningless, it itself is a kind of meaning. However, he was too lazy to argue with people about this. He just stretched out his hand to the sky, and just like that, the sky seemed to be torn off in half by him, revealing the endless dark world, and then, he looked at Yi Bai with a sad face. That look seemed to say, I have done what you asked me to help you with, let me go back. Although there is nothing wrong with staying in this world. Yi Bai ignored him and just looked at the torn void, or the world where the void exists. Carl was so excited that he wanted to communicate with the void, but unfortunately Yi Bai isolated him with the live broadcast room, so he could not do anything. The Void Star God could tear open the barrier of the void world in the live broadcast room because Yi Bai, as the host, allowed it. He did not allow anyone to interfere with the outside world in the live broadcast room. Then, Keisha, who was in the outside world, suddenly had a few hairs on her body. An illusory person had emerged from the void. Keisha pushed it with her hand, it shook for a while, and then returned to its original state. Keisha's face changed drastically. Her attack just now used the theory of cosmic movement. The universe itself is moving, which everyone knows, because the stars in the universe are expanding. But if you regard the universe as an entity, it is also moving. It's just that people in the universe cannot feel or calculate this movement. Just like humans on Earth, if there is no reference, you can't feel the Earth moving, let alone calculate the speed of the Earth's movement. And Keisha did it. At the beginning, she wanted to use the void matter she found as an anchor point. She thought that those things outside the universe could be used as a reference. Unfortunately, she found that it was not possible, and these void substances were still in this universe. But fortunately, she met many people in the live broadcast room, many talented scientists, mages with profound spells, and even gods with extremely strong scientific theories. They all have unique understandings of the world. In the end, she thought of a way to calculate the speed of movement in this universe through the different time flow speeds in each universe. And this is the principle of her ability to move Carl over a long distance. It's like someone on the Earth, you suddenly isolate him from the Earth and let him not move with the Earth, which naturally looks like this person moving quickly on the Earth. Keisha used this theory to develop an attack skill. That is, after the isolation is suddenly revoked. This situation is like someone on the Earth suddenly not moving with the Earth, then he will definitely be smashed into slag by the movement of the Earth. However, it is completely useless for this void creature. At that moment, Keisha had a guess. Void creatures exist in a higher dimension of the world, so it is useless even if the power of the entire universe is used to hit it. Because it doesn't exist in this world at all, you can't hit it. Keisha did create 3 void engines, but she didn't equip herself with them. Even if she installed them on herself, using the power of the void to fight against the void would be like a joke. How to deal with this thing? But the next moment, the illusory figure appeared in the live broadcast room. If Yi Bai wants to invite someone to the live broadcast room as a special guest, he needs to see him or know his name. But the void creature has only one alias, and if the void creature does not show up, Yi Bai cannot invite him. So, Yi Bai asked the void star god for help. It would be fine if this void creature did not appear, but if it appeared, he would not be able to refuse Yi Bai's invitation. Yi Bai said curiously, I'm very curious, if you are creatures sublimated from the previous civilization of this universe. Why should we destroy the civilizations that may sublimate into the void and prevent them from sublimating? No matter how much the figure shook, he found that he could not transcend the live broadcast room, and he was a little panicked. Yi Bai said, Don't want to talk 1.7. Then I can only ask your original body to speak. The next moment, the illusory figure began to change, and eventually turned into a real human being. He looked at Yi Bai in horror and screamed, How is this possible? What the hell are you? How could the true form of life in the higher dimensional world appear in the 3-dimensional world? Just like you, how could your true form be completely pasted on a piece of paper? He didn't understand why what he said could become the language of the 3-dimensional world. This thing that was beyond his imagination made him extremely frightened, and he didn't even dare to attack Yi Bai. Yi Bai sighed, If you don't speak again, then I will have to use more drastic measures. Recently I have learned a method that can directly reduce high-dimensional creatures to low-dimensional. The void creature panicked. I said. The void creature said bitterly, As civilization enters the pre-nuclear era, it will slowly touch upon the secrets of the gods and the reality of the world. Then, the gods will appear. Because ordinary people simply don't have enough time and energy to explore all the mysteries. A lifespan of just over 100 years is not enough to learn knowledge, because even if knowledge can be inherited and transmitted, it still takes enough time to understand it. But every time you cultivate a god, the resources consumed are huge. Everyone agrees with this. Just like the former Dinor galaxy, in order to cultivate the power of the galaxy, the light of the sun, the hand of the star, they fought hard, even the civilization collapsed because of it, and in the end they still failed to achieve their goal. Yi Bai asked, What does this have to do with you destroying those civilizations? The void creature said, Since cultivating a god consumes so much power, then if you want to cultivate a god. According to you, it is a void creature. How huge is the energy required? This will bring disaster to the entire universe. Just when he said this, he raised his hand and slapped himself twice. Truth or dare? Yi Bai laughed and said, lying is not a good habit. It seems that high-dimensional creatures can't get along with low-dimensional creatures honestly, so why not reduce the dimension? Yi Bai really wasn't bluffing. He got all of the Zeroer's technology from the Zeroer. Although he didn't understand much, the Zeroer was designed to be foolproof. Now he has a supercomputer that evolved from the fragments of the Great Tao, and the computing power is definitely enough. As for energy, isn't the Void Star God here? What's wrong with borrowing some from him? Yi Bai can also try to control microscopic particles and let them release huge amounts of energy, but to reduce the dimension of a high-dimensional creature, I'm afraid it would not be enough even if I had to divide the entire Earth. The void creature was terrified. He had never encountered such a situation before. Not only was he pulled into the material world, but he was also easily controlled by others. Although the life of the void creature is not so easy, if he is asked to abandon his eternal body and reduce the dimension back to this world, he will go crazy. That situation is no different from a person turning into a bug. He hurriedly said, our universe was originally a three-dimensional world. There is no high-dimensional world. We developed that high-dimensional world bit by bit. Even we are too slow in developing higher-dimensional worlds. If more creatures ascend to higher dimensions, the void will be too cramped. So, we don't want anyone else to ascend to a higher dimension. Morgana's eyes widened. Is it really that simple? The first person to get on board will not be allowed to get on board again. It was because of this vulgar reason that I was afraid of this thing, and I have been afraid of it all my life. Yi Bai sighed. I also thought there was some shocking secret before, but it turned out to be nothing but the selfishness of human nature. In fact, this is also reasonable, because in theory, most of the disputes in the world, or even all disputes, can be attributed to the struggle for resources. Then why can we find void matter after a person dies and after a black hole? The void creature said, it is impossible for our original body to enter the three-dimensional world. Only projections can enter this world, and projections also need channels and carriers. Black holes are the channel for our power to enter the material world, so there will be residual power. The human soul can be our carrier. If someone has carried our projection, there will be residual void matter in the soul. This is one of the reasons. Yi Bai said. One of them. The void creature said. The soul is very special, so it can carry our projection. Because the soul itself can be regarded as a kind of quasi-high-dimensional matter, it transcends the material world. This is also one of the reasons why void matter can be produced after a large number of deaths. Yi Bai said, it seems that what you call high-dimensional space is a little different from the four-dimensional space I understand. More like the spirit world or something. Hey. Some people are upgrading dimensions, while others are reducing dimensions. This is probably the difference in the world. Then he looked at the light screen. Do you have anything else to ask? Keisha said. So you are essentially an information creature. The void creature said. You can understand it this way, because only by abandoning the form and transforming the form into information, similar to the sublimation of the soul, can you completely break free from the shackles of matter. Angel Juxin said. So I can understand you as a completely opposite existence to us. Angel Juxin, her combat power is not so strong among the angels, but she can become an angel right wing at the age of 500, just because her academic level is very good. The void creature said, you can understand it this way, you are material, and we are non-material. Keisha said again, what will happen if you enter this world without the existence of the host? The void creature said, our original body will never enter this world. If it is a projection, it is probably to destroy. Carl said. So, opening the void does not mean eternity. The void creature said unhappily. Even the universe is not eternal, let alone us. Our world, after all, is dependent on this universe, and this universe is the foundation of our world. Then the whole world fell silent again. Yi Bai stretched and said, it seems that everyone has asked all the questions they wanted to ask, and I have also finished the interviews I wanted to do. Then, he looked at three special guests. Let's play a few games to relax. The king's game started. The Void Star God lost a promise to Yi Bai. The void creature not only gave up all his knowledge, but also became Yi Bai's servant. Then Yi Bai sent him back to the void. If he has a chance in the future, Yi Bai wants to go to Lukong to have a look. Anyway, he thinks that this void is different from the four-dimensional space he understands. As for Carl, Yi Bai ignored him. Because Yi Bai believes that Keisha can handle him now. Then, he ended this defense with a lottery. And the winner this time is, Angel Juxin. The light curtain disappeared, and Yi Bai also left this world without staying for long. Pan Zhen, Keisha, and the one-winged angel just looked at Carl and Demon No. 1. Then, Carl raised his hand and said, I surrender. The person opposite was Keisha, the king of gods. Even if he mastered some techniques that surpassed the angels, it would be very difficult to defeat Keisha head-on. Otherwise, he would not have spent so much time to set up such a game with Morgana. Besides, Keisha may have been equipped with a void engine now, and his technical advantage is no longer overwhelming. Coupled with Keisha's previous means of transferring herself at any time and attacking void creatures, he can no longer beat Keisha. What's more, the previous words of the void creatures have told him that his pursuits in this life are just vain. Therefore, there is no need to fight anymore, he needs to think quietly about what to do in the future. At this time, Morgana also walked out of Demon Number 1 and said, I surrender too. I don't want a war to happen on Rose's planet. She was telling the truth. But there was one more thing she didn't say. Based on the unimaginable means that Keisha had shown before, she couldn't escape this time. And now that she has seen what the ultimate fear looks like, she is not so afraid. She will not be as hysterical as before to engage in degenerate freedom. In fact, Keisha was right. Her previous behavior was really similar to that of a child walking at night and being frightened by a ghost. The two surrendered so quickly that even Keisha was surprised. But she didn't say much, but looked at Pan Zhen. Liang Star, want to interfere in the internal affairs of the angels. Pan Zhen's face fell. This old woman really holds a grudge. He said, Queen Keisha, I absolutely don't have this idea. Even in the future, I just want to help Angel Yan. He cried out for injustice. After all, it's really not nice of you to use things that will happen in the future to trouble me. Besides, I didn't do anything out of line in the future. After all, I am the generation here, and Angel Yan is just my junior. I helped her, so why should I be so humble? Keisha said, I want to form an alliance, I wonder if Li Yongxing is interested in joining. Pan Zhen was stunned. What alliance? Keisha said, an alliance against void creatures. Although the host has helped us solve a problem before, these problems will not disappear. The host is unlikely to help us forever. Those void creatures will come down again sooner or later. And I believe that void technology may not be our only way forward. If we unite together, we can develop new technologies that will also be able to fight them. Keisha gained a lot this time. Just the battle with the void creature, plus the scene of the void star god tearing the void apart, her understanding of the void has already gone up several levels compared to before. Moreover, she believes that this universe focuses on the study of the void and information, and has some shortcomings in other aspects. They can also develop in the scientific research directions of other universes such as time, imaginary energy, dimension. In the study of time, she has made some progress, but other aspects are still zero. To figure these out, it is definitely not enough to rely on the angel civilization. So, she wants to form this alliance. If it was the proud Keisha in the past, she would never do such a thing. But after seeing so many magical existences, she is more pragmatic. On the giant canyon, the Shangbing company is on full alert. Although the host has left, the angels and demons are still on Earth, and even the death god Karl is there. This madman is likely to do anything. At this time, the clouds rolled in the sky, and the one-winged angel appeared here. The familiar scene appeared. The only difference is that this time, the demon queen Morgana stood in front of the one-winged angel. Morgana landed on the Grand Canyon, looked at Chiangwei and smiled. Hello, Chiangwei, we finally meet. Chiangwei was very nervous and didn't know what to say. At this time, Morgana took out a booklet and said, all my understanding and research on space-time genes are here. I hope it can help you. I'm so glad the host showed up. Because, this time you won't hate. At this time, Keisha said to Zhe Xiaolun, I want to form an alliance among the stars to fight against the great enemy of the future. I hope the Earth has joined this alliance. Zhe Xiaolun, grow up quickly. This universe also needs your strength. Although Yi Bai did not show who won or lost in the final battle between Zhe Xiaolun and Karl, the fact that he could fight against such a Karl at that time only showed that the potential of the galactic power was unfathomable. Then she returned to the Angel Nebula with the two captives and began to wipe out the remnants of Hua Yi. She would not keep this unstable factor any longer. Yi Bai retracted his gaze. The follow-up of the super god world should be very stable. It was worth using, mental midwifery, when talking with Keisha. I forgot to use it in these two interviews. This thing has a strong aftereffect. When used in interviews, in addition to helping beings like Jinx stabilize their mental state, it will make the guests constantly distracted. Therefore, he rarely uses it in interviews, and usually uses it in normal times, without worrying about the effect of the show. Then, he opened his panel donkey. Host. Yi Bai. This live broadcast activity, 100%. Activity level 90%. Reward, world origin to be claimed. Activity 100%. Additional reward, Eye of Causality to be claimed. Worlds you can visit. Marble Universe observable, Naruto observable, The Boys observable, Bleach observable, Genshin Impact observable, 3 Body observable, Collapse Planet Railway observable, Justice League observable, Battle of the Twin Cities observable, Journey to the West 1986 observable, Super Seminary observable. Complete an interview and unlock a new world. The TV series, Watchmen, close double angle bracket. Already have abilities. S-level telekinesis, brain power development tree diagram, space jump, truth or dare, 100% bare-handed attack, King's Game, supreme cheating, I'm rooting for you, Kuroko basketball, crazy man and resentful woman, Magpie bridge, spiritual midwifery, spiritual mentor. Existing weapons, Pengu, the supercomputer developed in the fragments of the Avenue. The origin of the world, this reward Yi Bai had already taken a fancy to before the interview. This is something that can improve the level of world power. For example, if he uses the origin of the world in a low-level martial arts world, it is possible to upgrade this world to a high-level martial arts level. It's a good thing. He plans to use it in Teyvat to see how much Teyvat can be upgraded to. Because now he rarely returns to the real world, he is almost going to settle down in Teyvat. And the second eye of cause and effect can trace the cause and effect of all things. This is a great help to Yi Bai. For example, in this interview, if that kind of void creature does not appear, Yi Bai cannot perceive it or see it. But with the eye of cause and effect, he can trace back to see their existence by causal tracing. In addition to these, he has other gains. Recently, he has been using mental midwifery on people, and the feedback from the mental mentor has increased his lifespan by hundreds of years. Hundreds of years in an unlimited world. Although it doesn't seem much, this thing accumulates little by little, and gathers sand into a tower. In addition to the mental perception fed back by the mental mentor, combined with the improvement of brain power by the brain power tree development map, his control of telekinesis is becoming more and more precise. The supercomputer Pengu could only tell him how to use telekinesis, but how to use telekinesis well depends on himself. Then he used the origin of the world on this world. The sleeping Tianli suddenly woke up, because he felt that his injuries were healing rapidly. Originally, he thought that his injuries would not heal, but if this continued, he might be able to heal in 100 or 200 years. He was stunned for a moment, and then he discovered Yi Bai's existence and came to Yi Bai. He said in surprise, "What did you do?" Yi Bai activated the eye of cause and effect and saw the cause and effect line of the entire world. The cause and effect of Teyvat is already highly bound to Tianli. He said, "It seems that this world also thinks that you are the master of Teyvat. This is the feedback the world gives you." Tianli was stunned, and sensing the world again, she could feel that the world was changing, and the essence of the world was getting stronger. Then he felt the will of the world, but the will of the world seemed to have Yi Bai's breath. He was angry. "Are you going to take this world away?" Yi Bai used the origin of the world on this world, so his mark was naturally on the origin of this world. To a certain extent, he was really competing with Tianli for control of Teyvat. He said, "Even if I want to rob it, so what? Tianli wilted, and immediately became aggrieved. You come to rob my world, and you still have reason. Yi Bai said, don't act like this world was originally robbed by you. You can rob me but I can't. Besides, I just share some rights, I don't really want to rob your world. There is really no way according to the law of nature. Because even if Yi Bai really wants to rob, he can't beat him. Not to mention other things, he can't withstand the hammer. Then Yi Bai went to find Funina again, handed her the interview record, and then the two of them snuggled together and continued to chase the show. Super God World. Kesha has annihilated the last remnants of Hua Yi, and the first Super God Alliance meeting is underway. Kesha said, the research on time will be left to the angels. The first thing I saw that could control time was the time gem. The energy emitted by the Infinity Stones is a gamma-ray burst, and I have made some progress in this regard. Iron Man said in the comments section before that he believed that in their world, time jumps can be achieved through the microscopic quantum field. So we will conduct research in this area next. On Earth, your Rose has the space-time gene, so I hope she can join this research. As for the research on dimensions, I think the high dimensions mentioned by void creatures are different from the four-dimensional space of the three-body world. Li Yongxing, do you want to study this? Sure. If you need any support, please feel free to ask. The study of imaginary energy is an unknown field for us, but after meeting the Void Star God, I finally have some idea. Just leave it to Earth. After all, you also have the foundation of no star. After the research directions were assigned, everyone was satisfied. However, at this time they received a message that the Triangle Civilization appeared. The civilization that once failed in the physical war has made a comeback again. Funina sighed, it's a war again, why are there so many wars? Yi Bai said, the total amount of resources in the universe is limited. If everyone wants to live a better life, they need to fight. War is inevitable. Then Yi Bai switched to the Naruto world. Tsunade is confronting Danzo. Tsunade said, Danzo, I am so disappointed. Why are you doing this? Danzo said angrily, if you do this, Konoha will no longer exist. Tsunade shook her head and said, do you still remember why your grandfather established Konoha? The purpose is to allow ninja children to receive education from an early age, so that they don't have to go to the battlefield when they are children. I hope there won't be so many wars. Now we have succeeded. Our 5 major ninja villages in Uchiha Madara have formed a ninja alliance to fight against the possible arrival of the Otsutsuki clan. Even if all ninjas really unite in the future and Konoha village no longer exists, my grandfather's wish has come true. And now, you want to destroy it. Danzo roared. What do you know? What do you know? You are selling your father's land without feeling any pain, I will never watch you do this. You are no longer worthy of being a Hokage if you betray the village like this. I will not obey any of your orders anymore. Tsunade said, I will never allow you to destroy the alliance either. Then, the earth broke apart, crackling, and trees rose from the ground, giving birth to a huge wooden man. Danzo was stunned. Wood release. You actually learned wood release. Tsunade shook her head and said, you don't even know how far ninjutsu and ninja tools have developed these days. I believe that if we continue like this, it won't be long before we no longer fear the Otsutsuki clan. Danzo, if you insist on doing this, then for the sake of the future, I can only ask you to die. Then, a Susanoo was put on the wooden man. Although it was not a real Susanoo, it was terrifying enough. Thus, the battle ended without any suspense. Danzo's twisted life also ended. Apart from these two worlds, other worlds have not changed much. Then Yi Bai released the interview preview, and then took Funina to wander around in various worlds, and came back to prepare for the next interview after having fun. This time he was going to interview Wolverine from the X-Men world. This was decided before. After all, X-Men was the first world to be unlocked, and those were old viewers. He never went there, and didn't even know what happened in this world. Recently, it seems that Professor X and Magneto haven't spoken much. I hope there is nothing unexpected. Wandering Earth World. A group of Earth executives have sat together, because they have already watched an interview, so after the interview preview came out, they can see the replay of Yi Bai's previous interview. In the end, Moss concluded that the possibility of the interview being true was 92.6%. and Moss believes that their world may learn the technology of other worlds from the comment area. I hope that Liu Pijang will actively send letters during the next live broadcast. I even prepared corresponding words for him. The senior executives on Earth all showed joy in their eyes. After all, the Earth needs to wander in the universe for more than 2,000 years before it can reach the predetermined position. This time is too long, and any accidents are possible in the middle. If you can get some high-end knowledge in the comment area, you may be able to solve the existing problems. For example, if you can build a spaceship with space jump capabilities, then mankind will usher in a new and bright future. The world of fate. Emiya Giant said. So, Mr. Tusaka, do you think everything said in that live broadcast room is true? Tusaka Rin said. Yes, but I hope you can have less contact with this kind of thing. Because this is not something ordinary people should be exposed to. It may bring you danger. But there is also a lot of knowledge in it, said Emiya Giant Warrior, or it can be. For example, the knowledge of angels, if I get it, can I become as strong as them? In that case, I will definitely become a partner of justice. Tusaka Rin was furious, but there was nothing she could do. She was not that familiar with Emiya Shuru yet, and too much persuasion would seem to be crossing the line. So she didn't say anything more, turned around and left. She didn't report this matter to the Templar Church. Because she felt that this might give her a considerable advantage in this Holy Grail war. DC Universe, Watchmen World. Dr. Manhattan looked at the interview trailer that suddenly appeared, and his almost numb expression became happy. How long has it been? How long has it been since I became like this? How long has it been since I last experienced this unknown joy? Great. I still have curiosity and expectations for the future. This is really great. The last mutants gathered together in the X-Men universe. This time, they faced the Sentinel robots from the future. These robots even restarted the dormant Bastion in this world and handed over the future technology to the Bastion. The Bastion, which obtained the future technology, created a large number of future Sentinel robots and launched a crazy slaughter on the mutants. It wasn't long before Professor X could only find a dozen mutants here. Professor X's previous deterrence against humans was useless because these future Sentinel robots were not controlled by humans at all. X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, the two largest mutant organizations, couldn't find a solution at all. Even the last time Yi Bai was interviewed, they were at war and had no time to watch. Fortunately, Phantom's ability has evolved. She could only allow herself and the things she touched to pass through objects, but now, she can allow people's consciousness to travel through time. With this ability, these last mutants survived, but they are just barely surviving. Professor X said, my Void project may be able to defeat these future Sentinel robots. After all, although these Sentinel robots were independently developed by future Bastion, they are derived from human beings. But we don't have time. We can't hold out like this for much longer. I have another very risky plan. I hope to decide whether to execute it after this interview. Then Professor X saw the preview time, and he was actually a little grateful in his heart. Because if Yi Bai came, he might be able to help these mutants get rid of the crisis, so that they don't have to take such a dangerous road. After all, time is the most unpredictable thing. Finally, the time came. Yi Bai appeared in this world, next to Wolverine. Then he discovered the miserable state of the mutants, and he was surprised and said, is it so miserable? Although he knew that the mutants were being hunted by the Sentinel robots, he didn't expect them to be so miserable. Even Magneto was seriously injured. Then he raised his hand lightly and cured several seriously injured mutants. Many of these mutants followed Professor X to watch Yi Bai's interview, and knew his ability, so they immediately came to thank Tu Bai. The audience in the comment area also expressed their concern. Yi Bai said, your current situation is more difficult than I thought, what are you going to do? Professor X said, I have a plan, but it is very risky. Because I know you are coming to interview this time, I want to wait until the interview is over before deciding whether to execute it. Yi Bai said, why not tell me about it? Professor X looked at everyone and said, this compatriot of ours is called Phantom Cat. She can make people's consciousness travel back to the past. My compatriot is called Jungtu. He can sense every attack by a Sentinel robot. Whenever this happens, we will ask Phantom Cat to let the consciousness of one of our compatriots travel back to before the attack to warn us. Then this compatriot will flash and open the space door to find a new hiding place for us. This is how we avoid the sentry robots. This is what keeps us alive today. Thanos. I heard you talk about the experience of mutants before, and I was very confused at that time. Now I am even more confused. Any of you have extraordinary talents and abilities, so how come you were bullied so badly by humans? Shajin. It doesn't make sense. Generally speaking, it would be good if you didn't bully humans in this situation. How come you were in such a state? They are committing genocide against you, can you tolerate it? Speaking of this kind of thing, he hates it deeply. Dr. Banner. Wait, send consciousness to the past, change the past, and then change the present. Uchiha Madara. What's the problem with this? Since the past can be changed, if the past is changed, then the present will also be changed, right? Iron Man. Time doesn't work like this. Well, at least it doesn't work like this in our world. If it were in our world, even if they did that, they would still be killed. It just creates a new timeline where they didn't fight the Sentinel robots and weren't killed, which is a parallel universe. Or maybe this is the difference in the universe. Since the X-Men have saved themselves several times by changing the future, it means that, at least in this world, their time works like this. The two worlds have different ways of running time. The universe is amazing. Yi Bai sat down and asked, so what are you going to do now? Professor X said, the Sentinel project was first proposed by Dr. Bolivar Trask. In the early 1970s, he was the world's top weapons design expert. But secretly he was conducting human experiments on mutants, using their talents to advance his own research. Mystique. At this point, Professor X looked at Magneto and continued, Raven, she is also a mutant, and has the ability to transform into anyone. She hunted Trask all over the world and finally killed him at the Paris Peace Conference. As a result, Trask's death stimulated the government's demand for the Sentinel project. They captured Raven, tortured her, and experimented on her. And the secret of her transformation was discovered in Raven's DNA. Then they used this as a foundation to create the Sentinel robot. The Sentinel robots can change their abilities at will according to their opponents, completely restraining the mutants. So my idea is to send the consciousness of one of our compatriots to the past to stop Raven from killing Trask, and thus stop the Sentinel robots from reproducing. We can't change the present, nor can we fight the future. The only way now is to change the past. Changing the past is too dangerous. If something unexpected happens, you may never recover. But now we are at the end of our rope. Yi Bai cursed in his heart. Professor X and Magneto had changed before and successfully stopped the Sentinel robots. As a result, another batch of Sentinel robots came from the future, forcing them to implement the reversing the future plan. This world's power to modify the plot is too strong. At this time, Phantom Cat on the side said, wait a minute, or I can send a person's consciousness back to a few days or months ago or try. But send it to decades ago. Even if it's you, the professor, who has the most powerful brain in the world, your brain will collapse because of this. Yi Bai said, so the person you originally sent out to carry out this plan was Wolverine. Because of his self-healing ability, even if his brain turns into a mess, he will not die. The professor hesitated a little, but nodded. Wolverine didn't hesitate. No problem, I'll go. Yi Bai patted Wolverine on the shoulder and said, dear audience friends, this is the guest I want to interview today, Wolverine. He is a mutant with the strongest self-healing ability in the world. Even if he is broken down into particles, he can heal quickly. Wolverine lit a cigar and said, Mr. Host, I really want to cooperate with your interview, but we are now at a time of life and death. It was because he had seen the previous interviews that he knew how abnormal Yi Bai was. Otherwise, Wolverine would not be so good-tempered. He could still talk nicely at this time. Yi Bai said, don't you want to know the success or failure of this time? Wolverine was delighted. Can we even see this kind of future? Yi Bai said, according to what you said, I don't know whether it should be considered the past or the future. But we can talk, but let's not rush, let's talk about you first, your past. Wolverine was even more delighted. I can still understand my past. Of course I am willing to do so. He has been looking for his past memories over the years, but unfortunately he only found a little bit. Even Professor X's ability could not help him recover his past memories. If he can recover his memories by accepting an interview, then of course he is willing to accept this interview. It's just an interview, how much time can it delay? Besides, there is a high probability that the reversal of the future plan can be seen from the interview. If there are any mistakes or omissions, I can check and fill in the gaps to ensure that the plan is intact. Then a picture appeared on the screen. It was a huge manor. A boy was lying on a hospital bed, and another slightly older boy was accompanying him. Compared with this gorgeous room, the older boy was dressed much more simply. Judging from their tone, the two were brothers. The door opened and a middle-aged man walked in. The older boy saw that he was nervous, stood up, and hid the knife in his hand behind his back. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, Victor, I thought you had gone home." The older boy Victor said, "I'm just accompanying James, that's all." The man was a little strict with the older boy Victor, but very kind to the younger boy James. Then, a man knocked on the door rudely outside. "Elizabeth." The man said to the older boy Victor, "Your father is drunk, take him home." Seeing this, the audience understood. It must be that the mother of the two boys divorced her original husband. Then the older boy followed her original husband, and the younger boy remarried his mother. I just don't know which one Wolverine is. When seeing this scene, Wolverine's eyes changed and his head split. He seemed to remember something. The quarrel outside became more and more intense, and then a burst of gunfire suddenly rang out. The little boy James couldn't help but climbed up from the hospital bed and rushed downstairs, only to find that his father had fallen in a pool of blood. Another man held his mother hostage with a shotgun. The little boy James called for his father, but his father could no longer respond. The man with the shotgun looked at him and said, "There are some things you don't understand." Then he started arguing with the woman. The angry little boy raised his fist, and he was horrified to find that there were 3 bone spurs growing between his fingers. This scene shocked the people present. Then the little boy roared and rushed forward, stabbing the man with the gun directly. The man looked at him blankly, and said with his last strength, "He is not your biological father. I am." The little boy was stunned and turned to look at his mother. But his mother's eyes were filled with fear. "Who on earth are you?" The little boy James panicked and ran out of the room under the cover of night. The older boy Victor caught up with him and knocked him down. The little boy James said in panic, "I didn't mean it." The older boy, Victor, held his shoulder and said, "You are, but he deserves it. You are enforcing justice for the people." It was then that the little boy James discovered that the older boy had sharp nails growing on his hands. "We are brothers, Jimmy, and brothers should protect each other. You must be strong, so strong that no one dares to do anything to us." The scene freezes here. Wolverine wailed and hugged his head. I remember. Victor, Sabretooth, he is my brother. Me. All the mutants fell silent when they saw this scene. They all knew that Sabretooth and Wolverine had similar abilities. But the two have always been hostile to each other, and even seemed to be enemies of fate, but who would have thought that they were actually brothers? Wolverine, who was so young, experienced the tragic death of his adoptive father, killed his biological father with his own hands, was rejected by his mother, and then turned against his brother. Fate was really too cruel. Professor X comforted. "Logan, that's not your fault." Wolverine rubbed his head and took a deep puff of the cigar. "I'm no longer the little boy I was back then, this kind of thing can't defeat me. I just feel a little emotional, and I still can't remember why Victor and I ended up like this." He had been brainwashed many times, and his memory had long been locked. The locked memory was also chaotic. Even Professor X couldn't find his real memory in his mind. If he wanted to recall everything completely, this stimulation was not enough. Yi Bai said, "In fact, it's not just you. Except for Professor X, almost everyone here has had unbearable experiences when they awakened their abilities. To be honest, I think this world has too much malice towards mutants." Yi Bai said that he was interviewing Wolverine this time, but he decided to use Wolverine as the thread to string together the entire history of mutants. Because except for the early years of Apocalypse, Wolverine alone has experienced almost all the major events of mutants. When they heard Yi Bai's words, almost all the mutants' eyes were a little dim, because they really had similar experiences. The picture changed again. The picture of Wolverine and his two brothers on the battlefield flashed by quickly. With the change of clothing, people who know that period of history can see that the two brothers have participated in almost all major Western wars in modern history. Those who know this history began to popularize it to other people in the comment area, which caused many people to sigh. Comment area. Jing Yuan. I have seen many warriors who sacrifice their lives, but this is still rare. Wolverine doesn't look like he is fighting, he seems to be seeking death. He guessed that Wolverine may have a self-destructive tendency because he accidentally killed his father. But it would not be friendly to say this to his face. Luo Ji, he should have been promoted long ago for fighting like this, but he has always been a private. Captain America. You haven't experienced the war during that period, so you don't understand. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't. If they reveal their uniqueness, nothing good will happen to them. So once the ability is exposed, the only option is to change a unit. From this perspective, their superpowers are not a good thing for them, but more like a curse. After all, he is different, because he is a super soldier created by the military. The military needs him, so naturally they won't do anything to him. But he knows the nature of the military very well. If someone like Wolverine is found in their army, the consequences are self-evident. Iron Man. Although I don't want to admit it, I believe in the captain's judgment. If those crazy scientists in the military find an immortal, what will they do? No one knows. Curse. Many mutants agree with Captain America's words, and even Magneto did not speak. If it weren't for his awakening of his ability and being discovered by 217 Black Emperor Sebastian, his mother might have had a different ending. Yi Bai looked at Wolverine and said, what happened later may be even more cruel. Do you still want to know? Wolverine took another puff of his cigar. Yes, I also want to see what happened in those years. He wants to know his past, even if the past is a murderous steel knife, but he is used to it and is not afraid of pain. Yi Bai said, in fact, after so many battles, you are tired of it. You were originally planning to find a quiet place, hide your identity, and live a quiet life. Originally, you could. But the tree wants to be still, but the wind does not stop. Your former boss, William Stryker, has found you. William Stryker is the former assistant of Trask Bolivar mentioned by Professor X. He hates mutants very much, but he also envies their abilities. At that time, he had gathered a team of mutants to carry out the mission, and you were one of them. After Trask died, he wanted to go it alone. At that time, he wanted to turn you, who were immortal, into a super weapon. But saber-toothed tiger Victor has a problem with this. The scene changes again. Hearing this, Wolverine showed a mocking look on his face. Super weapon. You mean me? Yi Bai nodded. Yes. Wolverine said, he wants to become like me. He is really a lunatic. If he had told me earlier, I would definitely give him this opportunity. So, did he do something to me at that time? Yi Bai said, he had a conflict with you, but mainly because he was unhappy that Stryker chose you at that time. He always thought he was stronger than you, but Stryker thought that although you both had the ability to heal yourself, he couldn't survive the transformation experiment. Your self-healing ability is stronger than his. However, in my opinion, this is just the appearance of your contradiction. In the final analysis, there is a conflict between your three views. In the picture, Wolverine, Sabretooth, and several other mutants raided a small village. Stryker asked the villagers about the source of a mineral, and after asking, he wanted to kill them. Sabretooth started to do it, but Wolverine stopped him. Sabretooth was very unhappy. What are you doing? We have finally made a name for ourselves. If you mess it up, I will not forgive you. Wolverine shook his head and said, enough, I've had enough. It can't go on like this. Sabretooth said, is there a choice? This is what we do. Would you rather find a hole to crawl into and rot until they find a way to kill us? Wolverine said, I quit, how about you? Sabretooth didn't respond, so he chose to leave alone. The scene froze here. Yi Bai said, in fact, what the captain said before is right. Because of your special identity, you can only be a soldier, for fear of exposing your uniqueness. But William Stryker tolerated your peculiarities and gave you the opportunity to advance. But you couldn't stand this kind of life, so you chose to leave. Sabretooth chose to stay. Wolverine said, "Is that so?" I said that guy looked inhumane. Yi Bai said, "Later, for the plan of this super weapon, Stryker took advantage of the conflict between you." In the picture, Wolverine is kissing a woman goodbye, and then he entered a logging camp with an axe. He finally bid farewell to his battlefield career and became a lumberjack. A car stopped in front of Wolverine, and a middle-aged man got out. When Wolverine saw him, Professor X, Magneto and others all showed disgusting looks on their faces. Because this man is William Stryker. Everything this man did to mutants made them extremely disgusted. Wolverine even cursed. In the picture, Stryker said, "Your face remains the same." Wolverine held a cigar in his mouth. "Because I live a clean life. I found a job for you. I already have work to do." Seeing that Wolverine did not accept it, Stryker said, "Bradley was killed 3 days ago. I think someone is hunting our team back then. It is very likely Victor." The scene changed again. Wolverine found a wolf's body in the forest, with scratches from its sharp claws. Then he found his girlfriend's car, and discovered the same claw marks on it, and then he found his girlfriend's body. Heartbroken, he hugged his girlfriend's body and wailed. Yi Bai said, "Then, you found Victor and wanted to kill him to avenge your girlfriend, but you couldn't beat him, so you accepted Stryker's transformation experiment. This is how Stryker set a trap for you, letting you walk into his trap step by step." Wolverine couldn't help but take another puff of cigarette and stared at the woman's face. "I have seen her. After I lost my memory, the first thing I saw was her body, but I don't remember it at all. What's her name? She used to be his lover, but he couldn't even remember her name. He didn't even collect her body at that time, which made Wolverine heartbroken." Yi Bai said, "Her name is Kara. It was because of Kara's death that you willingly accepted the transformation experiment. It is to inject adamantium into your bones and fuse them with your bones, so that you have an indestructible body and a pair of indestructible claws. You became Wolverine at that time." The scene switched. Wolverine was seen lying in a laboratory, stripped naked and sinking into the water. Syringes injected those strange metals into his body. Yi Bai explained, "Adamantium is a special metal that Stryker found in a small village. It was contained in meteorites from outer space. Once it is synthesized, its shape will not change as long as it solidifies. That is the most special metal in the world." Comment area. Thanos. "I found it a bit like Captain America's shield. It's really interesting that on Earth, you use the strongest vibranium to make a shield for Captain America. In this world, Stryker used the world's hardest metal to make a claw and a skeleton. Such a precious thing is used for such a thing. Is this how you human scientists squander natural resources? Iron Man. With that shield in Captain's hands, Captain can fight anyone on equal terms. This is the hardest shield protecting the world. There is no such thing as squandering natural resources. After all, Captain's shield was made by his father. Black Tower. It does feel like a waste. Shouldn't this magical metal be used for scientific research? Just like that vibranium is said to be able to absorb any energy, its research value is far greater than a shield." Ruan Mei. Wolverine's self-healing ability is really rare, comparable to that of a rich evil creature, and this adamantium alloy injected into the bones can actually fuse with the bones. Both of them are amazing. She really wants to study them. March 7th. It hurts just looking at this. Galaxy Baseball Man. Captain's shield is the hardest shield, and Wolverine's claws are the sharpest claws. If Wolverine's claws are used to poke Captain's shield, who will win? This question has attracted a lot of discussion. When Wolverine saw this scene, the relevant memories resurfaced, and the pain seemed to be experienced again, making him take another puff of his cigar. At this time, Professor X said, "Based on my understanding of William Stryker, if he wants to make you into a weapon, he will definitely not do nothing but transform you. He knows too well what kind of person Stryker is." In the picture, the adamantium fusion was successful, and Wolverine lost his life, but his heartbeat soon resumed. At this time, Stryker said, "Fusion is feasible. Collect his DNA for number 11, and X will clear his memory." Seeing this scene, Wolverine cursed, This fool, it turned out that he was the one who cleared my memory. I should have stabbed him to death right then. Wolverine cursed a few times and felt something was wrong. If my memory was erased at that time, then the following events would not be able to connect. Yi Bai sighed. It seems that you still haven't remembered this memory. This memory doesn't seem to be as deep as Victor and your memory. In the picture, Wolverine opened his eyes in the transformation pool after hearing that. Then he stretched out his indestructible adamantium claws, cut through the restraints, and escaped. He was not afraid of swords and guns before, but it would be very uncomfortable when bullets hit his body. But now with an adamantium skeleton, it is no different from tickling. Yi Bai said, "Do you remember it now?" Wolverine shook his head. "I have some impression, but I still don't know." Yi Bai said, "Originally you didn't want to go back and cause trouble for Stryker, but Stryker didn't want to let you go." The scene continues. The naked Wolverine escaped to a farmer's granary. A kind couple took him in and treated him like their son. However, at this moment, Stryker's pursuers arrived. Agent Zero, a former teammate of Team 940, directly sniped and killed two elderly people, and also blew up the elderly man's house. Wolverine was furious and turned back to kill Agent Zero and the fully armed Stryker pursuers. The pair of adamantium claws left a deep impression on the audience. It was really indestructible, and anyone who touched it would be injured, and anyone who looked at it would die. Angel King Kesha. I now understand why that colonel called Wolverine a super weapon. In such a world, if an immortal person has a pair of indestructible claws, then he is truly invincible. Because he can come to you despite any attack and stab you to death with one claw. A simple tactic, but effective. All the mutants nodded. This was the most terrifying thing about Wolverine. Except for Professor X, Magneto and a few other mutants who could restrain Wolverine, it was really a headache for other people to meet Wolverine. Yi Bai continued, "At that time, you were going to kill Victor first, and then kill Stryker. Then you found out that they were in the same group, and even your girlfriend Kara was in the same group with them." The scene switches. Wolverine breaks into Stryker's laboratory. Here, he sees many mutants captured by Stryker. He even sees his old enemy Cyclops, but at that time Cyclops' eyes were covered. He also sees his girlfriend Kara again. At this time, he knows that Kara is also called Silver Fox, and is also a mutant. She can control other people's thoughts by touching. However, Kara tells him that the reason she helped Stryker was because Stryker controlled her sister. Wolverine chooses to forgive her. At this time, Stryker tells him the real purpose of his experiment. This grandson uses the abilities of his son and Wolverine to complete the production of Deadpool. Deadpool has the superpowers of many mutants. Then he sees a hairless monster walking in, looking familiar. He asks, "Wade, is that you?" But Deadpool ignores him. Wolverine says indifferently, "It seems that he has finally found a way to seal your mouth." Then the claws extend from his fingertips. However, at this moment, a gunshot suddenly rang out, and Deadpool fell down. Then a strange man wearing a red tights and carrying two swords appeared here. He raised his hands and said, "It's me, don't scratch me. I'm just modifying the timeline. Listen, you will eventually put away these claws and draw down the curtain of life. This is going to make a lot of people sad, but one day your old friend Wade will let you play again. If he does, promise him." As he spoke, he continued to shoot Deadpool's body, and said to Wolverine, "I love you." Then he disappeared. This nonsensical scene stunned everyone. Yi Bai said, "Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. It's this part." In the screen, Deadpool still appeared, but this time there was no red-clothed weirdo. The transformed Deadpool actually had the abilities of all the previous team members. His eyes could shoot lasers, he could teleport, he was immortal, and he could grow two adamantium blades between his fingers. Very difficult to deal with. At this time, Sabretooth Victor turned against them, and finally, with the help of Sabretooth, Wolverine killed Deadpool. The comment area suddenly became lively. Angel King Kesha. What is going on? He said he modified the timeline. Could it be that this person is a time traveler? Is your world traveling so random? Is defined as Professor. Why does this guy seem so weird? Thanos. Indeed, I also feel weird seeing this guy. I hate him for no apparent reason. Iron Man. Will it really be okay to let this kind of person modify the timeline? He doesn't look reliable. Yi Bai smiled and said, if you mention this person again, I will do an exclusive interview with him. Deadpool must be interviewed, this guy is so interesting. Then, he looked at all the mutants. Actually, when I saw the Sentinel robot, I had a few words to say. When I see Deadpool, I just can't help but vomit. Your enemies can study your abilities and use them to create a variety of powerful weapons. For example, like this Deadpool and Sentinel robot. But it seems that you have always only been able to use your abilities instinctively, and at most you have developed ways to use your abilities, or tools to assist your abilities. For example, Magneto's helmet and the Professor's brainwave machine. But you have never explored the source or nature of your abilities as deeply as humans have. You have the world's top scientists. Is it that your talents are so good that you take everything for granted and don't want to delve into it? The mutants were silent. It's embarrassing to talk about this, because whether it's Deadpool or the Sentinel robot, they all got their abilities by studying mutants. Using mutants' abilities to fight mutants, just thinking about it, is really uncomfortable. Ruan Mei. Indeed, I had the same feeling before. I thought they were lacking in scientific research capabilities. But the host said that it didn't seem to be the case. Yi Bai said, of course not, there is a scientist among the mutants, named Beast, and when his body mutated, his brain also mutated. He is definitely the world's top scientist. He helped Professor X build a brainwave machine that allows Professor X to control and perceive the thoughts of all humans on Earth. Having said that, I don't want to say anything more. With such powerful abilities, you are forced to this point by humans. Even if you just want to live in peace with humans, with your abilities, there are countless ways to do it. Hey, is the Beast still alive? Professor X showed a bitter expression on his face. Now, he really admitted that he was wrong, but he had no choice. He said, the Beast was the first mutant killed by the Sentinel robot. Yi Bai said, it seems that the Sentinel robots also feel threatened by him. It's really a case of hitting the snake at its most vulnerable part. They are the product of technology, and science is of course the most effective way to deal with them. Magneto said unconvincedly, humans can do this because they use mutants for crazy human experiments. We won't use our compatriots to do this. Yi Bai looked at Lao Wan and said, hey, don't be so unconvinced. Do you know where your abilities come from? Do you know how your abilities work? Do you know how you create and control magnetic fields? You can control electromagnetic force and even the Earth's magnetic field. It's such an amazing ability, but how do you use it? Control some metal and throw it like a bullet. Any powerful missile is more powerful than your thing. Let's take the simplest example. Have you ever thought about using your ability to confine high-energy particles so that you can easily create a controlled nuclear fusion device and have unlimited energy? With this thing, it's easy to deal with humans. You don't even need to use force to make humans obey you. The comments section became lively. Pan Zhen, are you born with the ability to control electromagnetic force? If this power can affect the strong magnetic field ion flow around the sun, it can create solar flares. No one knows the sun better than him. Kafka. Brainwaves are also a kind of electromagnetic field. With this ability, theoretically you should be able to control other people's thoughts. Batman. Electromagnetic force. According to the weak electromagnetic unification theory, then you have at least 3 basic forces of the universe. God, you can do so many things. The host said you only use it to move metal, which is a waste. Lu Pijang. If you complete the grand unified theory, then Magneto will be able to control the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. Being able to control the 4 fundamental forces of the universe is simply omnipotent, no different from a god. 0. Are there still people who haven't completed the grand unified theory? It's very simple. Iron Man. Is it very simple? I have always believed that the grand unified theory is a wrong theory. Because of the observer effect and the uncertainty principle, the 4 fundamental forces cannot be unified. 0. This problem is easy to solve. You just need to add the observer. So there are actually more than 4 fundamental forces in the universe, but 5, plus the observation force. Dr. Banner. Isn't this nonsense? The uncertainty principle exists because of the observer effect. Would adding an observer be useful? The star god of wisdom, Boschizan, so you haven't solved this problem yet. A big unified theory equation, let me show you. Or because the universe is different, you need to modify it. Then give me the modified parameters, which will be regarded as this exchange. The wandering Earth world. Lu Pijang saw that he had asked the equation of the grand unified theory according to the prepared words. He was very excited. Although he is not a scientist, he also knows that as long as the grand unified theory is solved, then human beings will be no different. Space jumps and superluminal flight will even become possible. His own world may not have to endure a wandering journey of more than 2,000 years. Moss has exerted its computing power to the extreme and began to verify the grand unified theory. Not only him, but also several other worlds that have taken the scientific route have also benefited greatly from obtaining the grand unified theory equation. They expressed their gratitude in the comment area, and Magneto himself was stunned. Am I so powerful? You said that I can even teleport, emit energy shock waves, control the volcanic eruptions of the Earth, use electromagnetic pulses to paralyze all electronic equipment on the Earth, and even try to paralyze the core of the Earth. Is it too late for me to study now? At this time, Yi Bai retracted the topic and began to show Wolverine again past. In the picture. After killing Deadpool, Wolverine released all the imprisoned young mutants. In the original story, there was the White Queen, who was Kara's sister. But in the version edited by Yi Bai, the White Queen was gone. Kara's sister became someone else. Because in the first battle of the X-Men, the White Queen had already appeared a long time ago, and she was a subordinate of the Black Emperor. The system should have assumed that the storyline of X-Men was a thing that happened in one universe, and it was an automatic bug repair. Wolverine in the picture finally found Silver Fox, but Silver Fox was seriously injured at the time. Wolverine wanted to take her to see a doctor, but was attacked from behind by Stryker, who shot her in the head with an adamantium bullet and made her faint. Then Stryker walked towards Silver Fox. Seeing that Silver Fox was about to be killed, he suddenly took a gun, turned the muzzle upside down, and pressed it against his chin. Silver Fox held his foot with the only strength he had and said, I can let you commit suicide, but I'm not as shameless as you. Put down your gun and keep moving forward, even if your feet bleed and break, don't stop. Then Stryker just kept walking forward stupidly. But this time Wolverine didn't wake up for a long time. When he woke up, Silver Fox was already dead. The Card King who came to pick him up looked at Silver Fox's body and said, do you know her? Wolverine closed Silver Fox's eyes and shook his head, no. At this time, the real Wolverine suddenly held his head and shouted, I remember, I remember. I remember everything. Kara, Victor, Wade, Stryker. I remember them all. Everyone sighed when they saw this scene. This guy is really a miserable beggar. The mutants and the audience at the scene finally knew why Wolverine lost his memory. It turned out that he was hit in the head twice by an adamantium bullet. Because of the serious injury, he missed the time to save his lover, and because of the amnesia, he couldn't even recognize his lover's body in front of him. What a human tragedy. In comparison, it is easier to live if you lose your memory. As usual, Yi Bai's interview this time can also be seen by the whole Earth. In this world, the existence of mutants has long been known to everyone. The attitude of ordinary people towards mutants is fear, and because of fear, they will stigmatize and demonize them, and always think that they are mutated monsters. So even if they knew that the Sentinel robots were hunting these mutants, most people didn't feel much, because it didn't matter to them anyway, and many people even felt that 790 inches was right. This kind of monster should be killed. At the beginning of the interview, after knowing that the mutants intended to change the future by changing the past, the people were even more shocked and scared. Because if the past was changed, many people might no longer exist, so many people took to the streets, shouting to kill all the mutants. However, after seeing the first half of Wolverine's life, many people couldn't help but remain silent. It turns out that mutants also have so many painful pasts. It turns out that they also have love and hate. Their innate talents not only did not make them live better, but instead brought them endless pain like a curse. Some people even began to think, is it right to kill all the mutants like this? Or do we just need to restrict their ability to use it? After all, in this world, people who are extremely good or extremely evil are a minority, and most people are ordinary people. Ordinary people always sympathize with the weak, and the mutants now are weak. Only the Sentinel robots did not change at all, and still made killing all mutants their top priority. After briefly losing Professor X and his party, they once again locked onto the location of the mutants and rushed over here. In the live broadcast room, Wolverine has regained his composure. He was used to pain and such. He took another big puff of his cigar and said to Yi Bai, "Thank you." Compared to forgetting everything and living in confusion but peace, he would rather live soberly and painfully. If even he has forgotten all these people and things, then they are truly dead. Without these memories, the first half of his life would not be considered lived at all. Yi Bai said, "Do you remember the first time you met Professor X and Magneto?" Wolverine nodded. "Of course, that time Victor attacked me, and Cyclops and Storm saved me. I met the professor at the mutant school. Later, because of the incident with Rugrats, I met Magneto again." Yi Bai shook his head. No, you met them much earlier." The scene switched. Wolverine was drinking and smoking in the bar, as decadent and irritable as ever. Then two young men found him, and one of them said, "Hello, I'm Eric Nancy." "I am Charles Xavier." Wolverine said angrily, "Go yourself." The two young men looked at each other and walked out of the bar. Then there was a burst of laughter. It turns out that the professor had hair when he was young. Don't tell me that the professor was handsome when he was young. In fact, they both look handsome. No, you guys had such a good relationship when you were young, didn't you? Even in this situation, these mutants were still in a joking mood, trying to have fun in misery. Magneto also laughed. "So we met at that time. I would have forgotten if the host hadn't mentioned it." Professor X said, "I do remember, but Logan forgot everything." Wolverine was a little embarrassed. "I had just lost my memory at the time, and I was in a bad mood." Although Wolverine is a kind-hearted person, when have you ever not been bad-tempered? "So, what did you want from me at that time?" Professor X and Magneto looked at each other. Both of them were in a heavy mood. Because it was at that time that they turned from good friends to enemies. Yi Bai said, "It's a long story, starting with Magneto." The scene switches. It was pouring rain, and a group of refugees were escorted into a concentration camp by soldiers armed with live ammunition in the mud. Anyone with a little military knowledge could recognize them as Nazis just by looking at the soldiers' weapons and clothes. Coupled with the codes engraved on the hands of these refugees, the identities of these refugees were obvious. Among the refugees was a family of 3, and suddenly a soldier came over and separated the family. The boy desperately called for his mother, ran towards her, and shouted hoarsely. Unfortunately, the soldiers stopped him, and he, a child, had no room to resist in front of adult soldiers. However, at this time, something strange happened. The child stretched out his hand and desperately grabbed forward. The closed iron door in front suddenly seemed to be attracted by an invisible force and was almost torn apart. At this time, a soldier hit the child on the head with the butt of a gun, and the child fainted. Seeing this scene, the mutants didn't know that the child was Magneto. It turned out that he had experienced such a tragedy in the world, so it was no wonder that he was so tough on humans. Professor X was a little worried about Magneto. Magneto looked calm on the surface, but his clenched fist showed his inner turmoil. The scene changed again. In the office, a middle-aged man was playing melodious music. The young Magneto was brought into the office, and the middle-aged man said to him, "I am different from those people. I also think that the fund is indeed the key. 5.1 is the door to a new generation, but blue eyes and blonde hair are amazing. That's really crazy." Young Magneto said, "I want to see my mother." The middle-aged man said, "What I want you to do is very simple. A coin is not as good as the gate. As long as you can move it, I can let you see your mother." But the young Magneto tried his best but couldn't move the coin. He apologized desperately and said he couldn't do it. At this time, the middle-aged man shook the bell on the table, and Magneto's mother was brought in. The middle-aged man took out a gun and pointed it at Magneto's mother. "I'll count to 3, if you can't move the coin, I'll pull the trigger." As soon as these words came out, the whole world and the comment area exploded. Captain America. This guy said he looked down on the Nazis, but his actions were no different from the Nazis. Disgusting. Wonder Woman. The Nazis are indeed a cancer on the earth. Captain America once fought against Nazi Germany, and Wonder Woman fought against Germany in World War I. Although they didn't mention World War II, they probably didn't do nothing. They are naturally very unhappy with Nazi Germany. Seeing that some people were puzzled in the comment section, they popularized Nazi evil deeds for people from other worlds in the comment section. And even if we put aside the matter of Nazi Germany, threatening a child with the life of a mother is a violation of human public order and morality. This aroused a lot of condemnation in the comment section. The people on this earth saw this scene and began to curse this middle-aged man. The young Magneto looked pleadingly in his eyes and turned to look at his mother. The middle-aged man was unmoved. The young Magneto tried his best. His face was distorted, veins on his forehead were throbbing, but the coin did not move at all. The mother was in despair, and she had begun to comfort her son. But the coin remained motionless. The gunshots continued without stopping, and the mother fell to the ground. The young Magneto was heartbroken and furious. The coin remained motionless, but the bell that the middle-aged man used to shake people was instantly crushed into a ball. Then, Magneto let out a heart-wrenching roar. The helmets on the heads of the two soldiers who escorted his mother in began to shrink inward and directly crushed their heads. Then, all the metal objects in the office began to jump and shake wildly, and finally everything returned to calm. The middle-aged man not only did not look afraid, but a smile appeared on his face. He put his arms around the shoulders of the young Magneto. "Great job, Eric. We discovered your talent." Anger and pain. Then he put the coin in the young Magneto's hand and patted him on the shoulder to show encouragement, leaving the grief-stricken Magneto sobbing softly. The scene freezes here. On Earth, countless kind people covered their mouths. Oh my God, Magneto has been through all this. No wonder he hates humans so much. This is all his fault. Among all the mutants, Magneto is definitely the most well-known one. Many people know what he has done, and humans despise him, but at this time, I don't know how many people began to sympathize with Magneto. Comment area. Lu Pijang. This guy is a beast. Luo Ji. This is a tragedy on Earth. Batman. This kind of person really doesn't deserve to live. Batman can really understand Magneto's feelings at that time. They have had similar experiences, and Magneto is even worse than him. Iron Man. If it were me, I would cut this guy into pieces. No one can stop me. Homelander. Why don't you kill this grandson? Since you have awakened your ability, you must kill this grandson. Don't look at Homelander's appearance, he is not a good bird. But he really yearns and desires for family affection. Most of the viewers in the comment area can also understand how painful and desperate Magneto was at that time. Dr. Manhattan. So, in this world, superpowers can only be stimulated by human emotions. This is Dr. Manhattan's first speech. Now he has almost no human emotions. Instead, he is interested in the mechanism of superpower stimulation, because in his world, no one has superpowers except him. Even those superheroes are at most stronger than ordinary people. He is a little curious about this. But not many people paid attention to him at this time. Even Ruan Mei, such an emotionally indifferent mad scientist, knows what parents mean to humans and will not say such things at this time. Yi Bai looked at Magneto and said, "Let the world understand your past, or they will understand your behavior." Magneto shook his head and said, "I don't care whether they can understand or not. But if this is your interview with me, then I can tell you. At that time, I hated Sebastian so much that I just wanted to tear him into pieces. I will return to him the pain I suffered from my mother 100 times or 10,000 times. Everything, nothing else, just the purest revenge." Yi Bai nodded and said, "I can understand. I saw a viewer in the comment area asking why you didn't attack Sebastian at that time." Magneto. Because Sebastian is also a mutant, his nickname is Black Emperor, he is the leader of Hellfire, and he was much more powerful than me at that time. So let's take a look. The scene switched. On a cruise ship. Black Emperor appeared again. He was different now, even younger. He wore sunglasses and a white suit, like a graceful businessman. He was meeting a general. Seeing Black Emperor's unfriendly expression, the general took out a grenade and said, "Either you let me leave with the money today, or we go to heaven together." Black Emperor smiled and walked over. The general didn't expect him to play by the rules so unconventionally. He put his hand on the pull ring. I swear, I really can pull it. Black Emperor walked in front of him and said, "No, you can't." After that, he snatched the grenade from the general's hand and smiled, "But I can." He pulled a bracelet, and the grenade exploded, but it didn't cause any damage. Because the horrible explosion only formed a fireball in his hand and eventually disappeared. Then Black Emperor said, "I can absorb any form of energy, which can keep me young. But it's a bit boring. I usually use it for this kind of thing." After saying that, he lightly tapped the general's body with his finger. The energy absorbed before was released directly, blowing the general to pieces. Yi Bai said, after Germany was defeated, the Black Emperor escaped. He founded the Hellfire Club, gathered several mutants under him, and started to stir up trouble everywhere. It was the Cold War at that time, and the Dark Emperor wanted to provoke a black war between the two superpowers on Earth, destroy the human world, and let the world be ruled by mutants. At that time, Magneto and Professor X were working together to stop the Black Emperor, and they wanted to find some help, and that's how they found Wolverine. Hearing this, Wolverine sighed, "So I missed such a big thing." If he knew at the time that the two people were looking for him for this matter, he would definitely help. He has seen the power of nuclear bombs, he knows how terrifying that thing is, and he would never want to see the Black Emperor's plan succeed. In fact, in this world, the Cold War has only ended for 30 or 40 years. So many people still remember the war without gunpowder that almost dragged the entire human civilization into doomsday. The two nuclear powers are on the verge of a war, and as long as one of them accidentally fires, they will rebuild the entire human civilization. So when the people heard that the Black Emperor actually intended to provoke a nuclear war to eliminate mankind and let mutants rule the world, they were furious. Fortunately, we sympathized with the mutants before, but we didn't expect that they had such ambitions. There should be no sympathy for these monsters, they should all be killed. Not to mention killing them all, but they should be restricted and not allowed to do whatever they want because of their abilities. Comment area. Demon Queen Morgana. Oh. Did they almost start a nuclear war? It seems that they don't know enough about this world. Nuclear war is horrible, but it is also the key to evolution. Even if she is locked up, she can still see Yi Bai's live broadcast. Haida. The situation in the world is different, and you still insist on applying it to it. There is no nuclear war in this world, but in fact they have already started autonomous evolution. Wouldn't it be courting death to have a nuclear war? Dr. Manhattan. Can nuclear war bring about genetic evolution? Angel King Kesha. Don't listen to her nonsense. This is true in our world, but not necessarily in your world. Batman. I'm numb. How come there are such lunatics in every world? Even if his plan succeeds, will ruling a ruin be rewarding? Jizzy. It is meaningless to classify good guys and bad guys based on their identities as mutants or humans. Mutants are obviously not out of the scope of humans, so naturally there are good and bad ones. It seems that it is a bit difficult for humans in your world to live in harmony with mutants. Professor X showed a sympathetic expression on his face. If it wasn't so difficult, I would have spent decades and would not have ended up in such a mess. Yi Bai looked at Professor X. Everyone has a general understanding of Magneto, and you also need to understand Professor X, the leading figure among mutants, so that you can understand this world more clearly. The scene switched. A little boy woke up in the middle of the night with a baseball bat in his hand. He walked into his kitchen and saw his mother opening the refrigerator. The little boy said, "Mom, it's you. I thought it was a robbery." The mother said, "I didn't mean to scare you, I just wanted to eat some snacks. Go back to sleep. How about I make you a cup of hot chocolate?" But the little boy stared at his mother and asked, "Who are you?" Then, without him opening his mouth, a voice entered, his mother's mind. "What did you do to my mother? My mother never set foot in the kitchen. Of course, she wouldn't make me hot chocolate unless she asked the maid." Then blue scales began to turn over on her mother's body, and her figure began to shrink, turning into a little girl covered with blue scales. The little professor looked at the transformed Mystique and smiled. The little Mystique asked, "Aren't you afraid of me?" The little professor said, "I have always believed that I am not the only one in the world who is different." After that, he stretched out his hand. Charles Xavier. The little fairy held his hand. Raven. The mutants were stunned. Mystique. Professor X. Did the professor and Mystique know each other since childhood? So how come they turned against each other? I remember that Mystique gave the professor a lot of trouble. Many people on Earth know Professor X's abilities, and they are extremely afraid of his abilities. Now that they have seen it with their own eyes, and have seen Mystique's abilities, their previous sympathy for mutants has dissipated a lot. Instead, they are terrified. After all, no one wants someone to easily enter their brain, know all their secrets, or even control their thoughts. No one wants someone to turn into their loved one and appear in front of them at will. Comment area. Uchiha Madara. This ability is similar to White Zetsu's. The Sentinel robot we mentioned earlier was developed with the genes of this little girl. But she seems to be able to only change into other people's forms, but not other people's abilities. Why does the Sentinel robot have this function? Aizen. Is there a possibility that Mystique actually has such potential, but she has not yet developed it? Iron Man. Well, it seems that what the host said is right. Mutants' understanding of mutant abilities is really not as deep as humans. But why Mystique? Batman. You're still asking. My dear, you look at the relationship between humans and mutants in this world. You gave birth to a child like this. I'm afraid her parents abandoned her when she was young. The audience also sighed. At this time, Yi Bai looked at Professor X. Professor, I think everyone in this world knows that you are a moderate mutant. I am very curious why this happens. I used to think that you grew up in a privileged environment and didn't suffer much, so you believed in the goodness of human nature. Then I thought it was strange because of your ability that you can read anyone's thoughts and memories. You should know how terrible the darkness in human hearts is. Professor X said, it is because of my ability that I can see that even the most evil people have good thoughts in their hearts. It's just that the good intentions have been covered up. Yi Bai nodded. So you believe that human nature is good? Professor X shook his head and said, the good and evil of human nature depends more on the environment. As long as they are guided effectively, people's hearts can be good. Yi Bai smiled and said, so you, Professor, believe in light, but have you ever been to a temple? The professor was stunned. Of course. Yi Bai smiled and said, do you see what is standing next to the smiling Maitreya Buddha? The professor paused and said, it is the guardian Vajra with bared teeth and angry eyes. At this moment, he understood what Yi Bai meant. Yi Bai said, even the most compassionate Buddha needs a Dharma protector. With them around, even the most vicious villain will become kind-hearted and do good. If robbery is not illegal, then everyone is a robber. That's why we need legal deterrence. Kindness, like justice, is something that requires strong force to maintain. What do you think? Tathagata. Great. Although Buddhism is compassionate, it also needs Vajra Dharma protectors. The host has Buddha nature in his body and should follow the Dharma. Laojun. Haha, go and save him. Tathagata said it casually. Save Yi Bai. How can he save him? With the host's ability, if he saves him, what if he lets him fall in love with Guanyin Bodhisattva on the spot? That would be a bad scene. I don't have enough skills to save him. But the host can realize it by himself. Luo Ji, the survival of a race is not enough to rely on kindness alone. I see that the professor is also a knowledgeable person. He must have read history, right? Kindness is of course beautiful, but which race has survived to this day relying solely on kindness? Seeing himself and the Trisolarans struggling for a chance of survival in the future, he was a little emotional. Professor X is too similar to those naive Earthlings in the future. Shuru Emiya. Justice requires powerful force. He has always wanted to be a friend of justice, who can break all tragedies and save anyone from death. But he is still trying to figure out what a friend of justice should be like and how to be a friend of justice. Hearing Yi Bai's words, he felt as if he had been enlightened. It's just that he is still far away from this goal. Captain America. It seems that it is no wonder that humans are so afraid of mutants. What the Black Emperor wants to do is too horrible. Thanos. What he wants to do is too horrible. Were all those nuclear bombs made by the Black Emperor? Was the Cold War started by the Black Emperor? Isn't it all caused by humans themselves? The Black Emperor is just following the trend. Alas, humans alone are like this, how difficult it will be for the universe to be harmonious. When everyone saw Thanos say such words, they found it strange even though they knew he might be speaking the truth. Who would have thought that this guy wanted to exterminate half of the life in the universe? After hearing Yi Bai's words and seeing these comments, Professor X thought of what he had done over the years, and then thought of the current situation of the mutants, and couldn't help but sigh. He looked at Magneto, and he suddenly felt that either he and Magneto were wrong. We seem to have gone to extremes, it would be nice if we could combine them. Magneto also looked at Professor X. Even though he didn't have Professor X's mind-reading ability, he had a feeling that he was connected to the professor's mind. Maybe we were all wrong, which led to this ending. Yi Bai said, Wolverine did not participate in this battle. If he was there, it might be a little different. He felt that although the Black Emperor was strong, he could not kill Wolverine who was protected by adamantium. If Wolverine walked in front of him, he would be killed instantly. After all, Wolverine could even kill Phoenix. But he couldn't revive the Black Emperor to verify it. Let's take a look at that battle. The Black Emperor instigated a dispute between the two great powers, and thus the Cuban Missile Crisis in this world broke out. Two great powers drew a line on the sea and then confronted each other. The screen switched. On the radar, the fleets of both sides were rapidly approaching, and all weapons were ready. As long as the other side crossed the border, a war would break out. The Soviet side received an order from the Kremlin and began to retreat, but a ship continued to move forward uncontrollably. At this time, a fighter plane flew over the horizon, and sitting on the fighter plane was the first generation of X-Men. Yi Bai said, after the end of World War II, Magneto has been chasing the Black Emperor. At that time, CIA agent Mora discovered the Black Emperor's conspiracy, and he found Professor X, an expert on mutants. The young professor agreed to help her stop the Black Emperor. Then they met Magneto, who was looking for revenge on the Black Emperor. They joined forces and recruited people to create the first generation of X-Men. Worked together to stop the Black Drought. In the picture, Professor X pressed his temple to exert his ability and felt the situation on the Soviet warship. He found that it had been slaughtered by the Red Devil under the Black Emperor. The Soviet fleet had found something wrong. They told the US side that this was an accident, but the US side thought it was a Soviet trick and prepared to go to war. At this time, Professor X controlled a Soviet general to launch a missile and destroyed the warship that had no living people. This operation confused both sides. But at least they avoided the outbreak of a nuclear war. At this time, the Black Emperor in the nuclear submarine had guessed that Professor X had arrived through the return of the Red Devil, and he was ready to implement the backup plan. So he put on a helmet to avoid mind control, walked in front of the nuclear reactor, and prepared to absorb the nuclear energy of the nuclear submarine to attack both sides, thereby triggering a nuclear war. At this time, the siren in the first generation of X-Men flew out of the plane, and he used ultrasound to find the location of the nuclear submarine. The professor read his thoughts and told Magneto the location. Magneto appeared on the landing gear of the plane, and used his ability to lift the nuclear submarine directly from the bottom of the sea. This scene stunned the soldiers on both sides. Magneto controlled the submarine to move towards a small island on one side. At this time, the opponent's mutant Riptide appeared, and he summoned a whirlwind. The whirlwind turned into a tornado that connected the sky and the earth in the sea, with a terrifying momentum. Then, it rolled both the plane and the submarine to the island on the side. Comment area. Luo G. What a big scene. Demon Queen Morgana. It's really interesting, our genes have been improved and upgraded generation after generation to have the current power. Are they born this strong? This is the result of his undeveloped power, which is somewhat enviable. The angels are also born strong, but in terms of talent, they are not as good as the mutants. Her words resonated with many people. The mutants' talents are too strong. Iron Man, especially the Black Emperor, his ability is too strong. He can absorb any form of energy, store it, and release it. He is just like a human vibranium. It is hard to imagine how the professor and his team defeated this man. Eisen, he is not as strong as you think. As long as the opponent is still a person, the ability of the psychic system is the strongest. Although his words are a bit self-boasting, no one objects. After all, Professor X's ability is too strong. There are many strong people in the audience, but there is really no one with a psychic ability as strong as Professor X, who can control the minds of all humans on the planet in an instant. When the plane crashed, Magneto used his ability to stick firmly to the plane and protected Professor X under himself. This made a group of mutants very curious. How could two people with such a good relationship break up? Mutants from both sides came out and then fought in a group. Magneto easily defeated Riptide, rushed into the submarine, turned off the nuclear reactor, and then he finally met his long-cherished enemy, Blackstar. Black Emperor, wearing a helmet that shielded telepathy, looked at Magneto and smiled. "Eric, what a surprise, very happy to see you again. I have a question, why are you on their side? Why should we fight for a race that is hunting us and is doomed to extinction?" He tried to brainwash Magneto and easily knocked him away. Now Magneto is no match for him at all. Black Emperor said, "You are much stronger than when you could only bend the door. I am proud of you. You have mastered the basics now. Just think about how much progress you can make if we stay together forever." Magneto tried his best to attack, but no matter how he attacked, Black Emperor took it all without any effect. Black Emperor pushed Magneto into a corner and continued to pua. "I never thought of hurting you, never. I want to help you. This is our time, we are the future of mankind. This world will be ours." Finally, Magneto, who had been silent all this time, spoke. "Everything you do makes me stronger. You speak the truth, I always knew you were my creator." Black Emperor smiled, thinking that he had successfully brainwashed him. Then at this moment, Magneto controlled an electric wire and took off the helmet on Black Emperor's head. The next moment, Professor X controlled his mind and froze him on the spot. Magneto walked over and put Black Emperor's helmet on his head. "I'm sorry. Charles, it's not that I don't trust you." He said so, but his behavior showed that he was actually afraid that Professor X would control his mind. Professor X was anxious. "Eric, stop it, you can't turn back now." 11. He didn't want Magneto to become a murderer. Magneto ignored him and said to the Black Emperor, "If you can hear me, then I want to tell you that I agree with you. We are the future. But you killed my mother." Then he took out the coin. "I'll count to 3, and then I'm going to move this coin." After that, the coin flew out slowly and sank into the brain of the Black Emperor. Because he controlled the Black Emperor's mind, Professor X felt a heart-wrenching pain at that moment. But the battle was finally over, but something unexpected happened. The leaders of the two countries who witnessed the battle regarded the mutants as a huge threat and prepared to attack them with fleets at sea. Magneto sensed this change and said, "Open your eyes, brothers and sisters, my enemies are on the opposite side. Their weapons are moving in the water, their cannons are pointed at us. Everyone united to attack us out of fear. Charles, tell me I am wrong." Professor X used his telepathic ability to discover that the people on the other side were going to attack them. Agent Mora contacted her superiors and asked to cancel the attack, but it was no use. All the warships opened fire on them, and countless artillery shells and missiles flew towards the beach. At this time, the professor could not control all the people on these ships and could only watch everything. Despair appeared in everyone's eyes. But at this moment, Magneto raised his hand and froze all the weapons in the sky. Then he turned the direction of the weapons and wanted to fight back. All the humans on the warship were terrified. Professor X dissuaded. "You said we are better people, it's time to show it." There were thousands of people on those ships. They were all good people. They were just following orders. "I have been abused by people who were just following orders, but never again," said Magneto. Then all the weapons were turned back. Professor X rushed to Magneto to stop him, and the two wrestled on the ground. Agent Mora shot at Magneto, and Magneto blocked all the bullets, but one of the stray bullets hit Professor X's lower back. Magneto immediately took out the bullet, heartbroken, and wanted to kill Mora angrily. But Professor X said that it was none of Mora's business, and that Magneto did it all. The two officially broke up here. Magneto took away the mutants who were willing to follow him, including Professor X's childhood sweetheart Mystique Raven. The picture froze here. The whole world was quiet. Indeed, this battle was provoked by the Black Emperor, but just like someone said in the comments section, the Cold War was not started by mutants. It was humans themselves who did it. Mutants prevented the outbreak of a nuclear war, but the warships killed all mutants. In this situation, Charles saved everyone's lives and was even paralyzed because of it. This silenced the ordinary people who had previously cursed the mutants to death because the Black Emperor wanted to destroy the world. They thought again, is this war against mutants right? The comment section suddenly became lively, and the activity level reached 52%. Uchiha Madara. Although I knew it before, I only now realized that the professor is so indecisive. Others are about to kill you, and you don't even fight back. Should you just stand there and be killed? Professor, you are so naive. You don't understand war at all. With your powerful abilities, how could you be so ignorant of war and humans? Luoji, no wonder the mutants in this world have fallen to this point. They have a kind heart but no Dharma protectors. Sooner or later, they will be devoured by the enemy. Ruan Mei, I think Magneto is right about one thing. Mutants must be the future of this world. Because as mentioned before, ordinary humans will give birth to children with superpowers, and then there will be more and more people with superpowers, and there will be more and more mutants. But is there anything wrong with this? Humanity as a whole has evolved, which is a good thing. Angel King Kesha. Madam, you are still a little too naive. Those ordinary people's superiors must be aware of this situation, but they would not want this to happen. Because it's good for humanity as a whole, but it's not good for them. No one will be eliminated by this world willingly. Having seen countless civilizations, Kesha saw the key at a glance. This sentence directly points out the most fundamental conflict between humans and mutants. Kesha's words enlightened the audience, because they had always thought these things were contradictory. It is human instinct to want to make oneself stronger and better. And evolution can achieve this goal. After humans evolve, they become mutants. Then why do people in this world hate mutants so much? It turns out that the root is here. At this time, Yi Bai looked at Professor X. Professor, I remember that you published a book about mutants. Do you think mutants are the equivalent of ancient Homo sapiens, and modern humans are the equivalent of ancient Neanderthals? The rise of Homo sapiens marked the demise of Neanderthals. In that case, did you think at that time that there would be a war between humans and mutants? In the end, one side will destroy the other. Professor X said bitterly. At that time, I was young and frivolous, and I spoke without thinking and used inappropriate metaphors. I also think mutants are still the future of mankind. But it is not that mutants are destroying humans, but that humans are all mutants. We are not the ancient Neanderthals. We are a wise race. We should have the wisdom to solve this problem of excess. But I found that I might be wrong. Humanity's desire to destroy us is much stronger than I thought. Stryker, Trask, the sentinel robots created by humans even came back from the future to this time to destroy us. Yi Bai said. But can humans really do it? You know, ordinary people may also give birth to mutants. Are they going to kill a mutant child after it is born? The humans who were watching the live broadcast could not help but fall silent. After all, even a tiger will not eat its own cubs, so are they really going to kill a mutant child after it is born? Even the whole world was plunged into confusion. What should we do about the mutants? Yi Bai then looked at Wolverine. How do you see this problem? Wolverine frowned, looking depressed. Even a smart person like the professor couldn't think of a solution, so what could I think of? But I know that if anyone wants to kill me, I have to fight him to the death. Yi Bai said again. Then tell me how you met Professor X and your experiences afterwards. Wolverine said. After losing my memory, I almost just muddled through my days, living in a daze, relying on boxing in bars to earn a living. About a few decades later, I met the little rascal. At that time, she had just awakened her ability and almost sucked her boyfriend dry. She was so scared that she ran away from home. At that time, Magneto targeted Rogue, and he sent Sabretooth and a very disgusting guy to attack us. Cyclops and Storm saved us. Later I learned that Magneto had created a machine that could turn ordinary people into mutants, and he wanted to use Rogue's abilities. Unfortunately his machine couldn't do that, so we stopped him and locked him up. Not long after, Stryker, he was not dead at that time. He led a team to attack the mutant school. He used his son's abilities to control the professor and wanted to kill all mutants. Later, Magneto used Stryker's plan to kill all humans. That time, we stopped the crazy plan of the two. But Chin. She died in that war. Later, Humans used the ability of a special mutant to develop a drug that could eliminate the mutant ability and turn the mutant into an ordinary person. Many mutants are interested in this drug. Magneto was dissatisfied with this and wanted to stop it. At that time, Jean was resurrected, and Magneto bewitched her. We fought another battle. Jean even killed the professor, and Magneto also lost his ability. I had to kill her. Later we found out that the effect of the drug was only temporary. Magneto and everyone else's human abilities have been restored. That time, Professor X showed his toughness for once and took us to meet the president, and the president told us our bottom line. But then the Sentinel project was completed, and the Sentinels began to hunt us. Professor X prevented a Sentinel attack. However, there are Sentinels coming from the future to this era, and we have no way to deal with them. There are only a few of us mutants alive now. Wolverine said it simply, but everyone could feel the mutants' struggle and quest. They have been seeking how to get along with humans. Professor X and Magneto each had their own ideas and attempts, but they all failed. They seemed to have tried the limited choices between humans and mutants, but they all failed in the end. So where will the future of humans and mutants go? It seems that there is no correct path. Magneto sneered. Mr. Host, we don't care about those things now. We just want to survive now. We have to survive first before we can think about how to get along with humans. Yi Bai nodded. You are right, your plan would have been successful. But the Sentinel robots are here, which is good. I can talk to them about the future of humans and mutants. Sentinel robots are coming. All the mutants' hearts were pounding, and they all turned to look at Jungtu, but Jungtu had a confused look on his face. The eye of causality was indeed powerful. Yi Bai had seen the attack of the Sentinel robots from the causal lines of several people, but Jungtu, the humanoid early warning machine, had not yet sensed anything. Yi Bai said, it's almost here, but I guess even though the audience has heard so much from me, they still don't know exactly what the Sentinel robots are, right? I'll show you around first. The scene changed. The sky was gloomy, and coffin-like aircraft flew in the sky. Then the aircraft opened its hatch, and Sentinel robots started up and fell directly from the sky. Jungtu discovered their arrival and notified Shanting. Shanting used her superpowers to open the portal and gathered the remaining mutants together. They were responsible for holding back the Sentinel robots. Phantom Cat took the bishop to find a place suitable for consciousness to cross. The Sentinel robots quickly attacked the mutants' hiding place. They were like drills, easily drilling through the outer defenses. Sunspot can absorb solar energy, store and transform it. He transformed himself into a fireman and sprayed endless flames at the Sentinel robots. A Sentinel robot changed its form, as if it was a sculpture of ice and snow, and walked up to Sunspot with terrible flames, and crushed him to death. The Iceman completely transformed himself into an ice form, freezing the Sentinel robot with endless cold. But the Sentinel robot also transformed its own ability, and spewed out endless flames from its body, melting all the frost, and crushed the Iceman's head with the terrifying cold. Facing Colossus, who transformed himself into steel, the Sentinel robot also transformed itself into a body of steel, and with more powerful strength and a harder body, it tore him in half. The picture froze here. Yi Bai said, this is the Sentinel robot at this point in time. They have acquired Mystique's transformation ability. Can change its form and ability at will to deal with mutants. When the people on Earth saw this scene, many of them covered their mouths. After all, this scene was too tragic. The sympathy that had disappeared before began to emerge. Comment area. Angel King Kesha. Is this a robot developed with Mystique's ability? Mystique's potential is immeasurable. I wonder if we can exchange genetic information with them. She is beginning to covet mutant genes. Batman. If we put aside Mystique's abilities, these Sentinel robots have energy conversion capabilities, material conversion capabilities. So when facing any mutant, they can convert the corresponding restraining ability. Generally speaking, you can't beat them. Have you ever tried to hack into their systems and manipulate them? Professor X, the Beast did try, but was killed before it succeeded. Iron Man. Others have created weapons specifically to kill you, and you are still relying on your old abilities. It's not unfair that you lost. What about the battery pulse? Since they are still robots, the battery pulse should be able to paralyze them, right? He used to be an arms dealer, and he knew too well the importance of upgrading weapons and equipment. The enemy's weapons and equipment have been upgraded, and you are still standing still, so how can you win? Magneto shook his head and said, "We tried, but it didn't work. They have very fast recovery ability like Wolverine. I don't have the ability to control them, I can only control metal to bombard them. To kill them, you need extreme strength, destroy them with one blow, and not give them a chance to heal. So the Bishop is our main output player. His ability is very similar to that of the Black Emperor. He can absorb almost all forms of energy and use them to attack the enemy." The comment area was silent. This thing is too perverted and almost unsolvable. No wonder the mutants would come up with the tactic of going back to the past to change the future. They really have no tricks. Yi Bai said, "These are just mutants at this point in time. Let's take a look at the Sentinel robots that have traveled from the future." Then the roof above the bunker disappeared in an instant. The sky is already filled with densely packed robots, almost all of which are the previous Sentinel robots that can change their abilities at will. But in front of them, a peculiar white Sentinel robot appeared. All the mutants stood up and were ready to fight. Phantom Cat was ready to let the Bishop travel through consciousness. At this time, Yi Bai said, "Did you see that white Sentinel robot? It is a Nimrod-class Sentinel robot that came from the future. It also retains the ability to switch its abilities. Even if it is completely shattered, it can easily reassemble, and its recovery ability is stronger than Wolverine. It even has an electronic consciousness independent of the body. It can replicate itself almost infinitely, and one person is a legion. The most terrifying thing is that it can evolve the ability to cope with the unfavorable battle situation." Seeing this, the audience finally understood why there are only 2 or 3 kittens left of the mutants now. The previous Sentinel robot was scary enough, and this Ningluo-class Sentinel robot that traveled from the future is even scarier. Yi Bai looked at the Ningluo-class Sentinel robot. "I know you have your own independent consciousness, come down and talk." But Ningluo ignored Yi Bai. It commanded the Sentinel robots to attack the mutants below. However, at this moment, the Sentinel robots disappeared without a trace, as if they had turned into smoke and dust. Ningluo's pair of electronic eyes changed constantly, and it analyzed the reasons for the disappearance of other Sentinel robots. Those guys were broken into molecules. But it was not afraid at all, because even if it was broken into molecules, it could reassemble its body. Because it can completely control its body at the molecular level. At this moment, it found that its legs had disappeared. It wanted to regenerate, but found that it could not regenerate at all. Its CPU was about to explode, and it couldn't figure out what was going on. Then it appeared in Yi Bai's live broadcast room. It struggled desperately, but couldn't move at all. Yi Bai said, "If you want to talk, then talk. If you don't want to talk, then I will completely wipe you out and go to Bastion to talk." Finally, Ningluo stopped struggling and said, "People outside of time, what do you want to talk about?" The mutants were shocked. In their eyes, the Sentinel robots were just cold-killing machines. This was the first time they heard the Sentinel robots speak. It turned out that they were not unable to speak, but they just disdained to communicate with us. Yi Bai said, "I'm curious, why do you call me a person outside of time?" Ning Lu said, "Because in the original timeline, you don't exist." It calculated that Yi Bai had the ability to read his own data directly, so it would be better for him to say it directly. Yi Bai said, "What was the original time like?" Ning Lu said, "In the original timeline, the battle between the Sentinel robots and the mutants would last for nearly 100 years. In the end, it was because of the birth of Bastion and I that we achieved the final victory." Comment area. Lei Dianying. Under such a disadvantage, the mutants actually fought against the Sentinel robots for 100 years. How heroic. She has also been through many battles and naturally saw the weakness of the mutants now. Uchiha Madara. It's incredible, because from now on, the mutants are powerless to turn the tide. March 7th. Awesome. How did the mutants do it? Ning Lu. Because of 2 people, Apocalypse, and Professor X. Yi Bai said, "Can you tell me in detail?" Ning Lu was silent for a while, and finally said, "Apocalypse is the oldest mutant in the world, and he has been sleeping. The desperate mutants found Apocalypse and revived him. With the help of Apocalypse, Professor X resurrected all the mutants who had died in the war, and the war lasted for 100 years. Everyone was shocked. The mutants in this timeline didn't know who Apocalypse was. But Professor X. Everyone only knew that he had super telepathic abilities, but no one knew he had the ability to resurrect. Zhongli. No wonder I felt strange, because Wolverine said before that Professor X was dead, but he is still alive now. If he can revive himself, then he can revive others too. Professor X murmured, is that so? I succeeded. Yi Bai asked, how did the professor revive those dead mutants? Professor X said, I used a brainwave machine to copy the consciousness of almost all the dead mutants. As long as I can revive their bodies, I can put their original will back into their bodies and revive them too. So I also have the DNA of those compatriots who died in the war. It's just that I haven't figured out how to reshape their bodies, and I don't know who Apocalypse is. The comments section exploded. Demon Queen Morgana, Professor, I really underestimated you. I always thought you were indecisive, and although you are very powerful, you are not worth mentioning. I didn't expect you to have such a skill. Resurrecting her comrades is not unusual for her, because she often resurrects her dead soldiers, but Professor X can do it, which is amazing. Everyone thought that Professor X was just a fool, but they didn't expect him to be so capable. Jing Yuan, mutants really can't be underestimated. I thought you guys are powerless to turn the tables now. But who is Tianqi? Yi Bai said, is that so? Tianqi is the oldest mutant in the world. He couldn't help but sigh that the timeline of this world is a mess. If Wolverine hadn't reversed the future, Chiasmora would not have discovered the sleeping Apocalypse, and Apocalypse would not have died under the power of the Phoenix. He would have become the savior of mutants in the future. The screen switched. Yellow sand, pyramids, it was ancient Egypt at a glance. A group of people carried a man wearing a golden mask and paraded through the streets, and everyone knelt on the side. The man who looked like a sacrifice was carried into the pyramid, and then took off the golden mask on his body. It turned out to be a mutant with blue skin. He looked very old. But without Yi Bai's introduction, everyone guessed that he was Yanqi. There were two altars in the pyramid. On one side was a strong young man. Someone took a knife and cut a bloody mark on his stomach, but soon the bloody mark disappeared. Everyone understood that this was a mutant with self-healing ability similar to Wolverine. One of Apocalypse's men said to him, now, you will rule this world forever, my master. Then Apocalypse lay on another altar. The top of the pyramid was pulled open, and it turned out to be a spire made of pure gold. The sun shone on the spire, revealing countless golden runes. The energy of the sun flowed through these runes and merged into the altar in the pyramid. The gold below began to melt and flowed upward along the lines. Apocalypse showed a blue breath, and those breaths flowed along the golden runes to the mutants on another altar. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. The two soldiers standing guard outside knocked off the wood supporting the boulder, and the boulder slid into the pyramid along the passage of the pyramid, smashing countless pillars supporting the pyramid, and then the pyramid began to collapse. At the same time, the human warriors in the tower rebelled. But Apocalypse's men were all mutants, and they easily killed the rebellious human warriors. At this time, the mutant on another altar had turned into Apocalypse, but Apocalypse's men were powerless to save the situation. His most loyal men could only use their own strength to protect the newborn Apocalypse who was hidden in deep sleep. In the end, the altar sank into the dark underground. The scene freezes here. Yi Bai said, in ancient times, Apocalypse established a country ruled by mutants. However, his rule was unjust, which caused his people to rebel, and finally put him into a deep sleep. The world is so wonderful. Who would have thought that a tyrant like him would become the savior of mutants in the future? Comment area. Laojun. This Apocalypse seems to have the ability to take over other people's bodies. Yi Bai nodded and said, indeed, he can keep taking over other people's bodies and at the same time possess their original abilities. Theoretically he could have eternal life and unlimited power. And the most important thing is that he can develop the abilities of mutants and allow them to maximize their abilities. If the mutants' plan to reverse the future is realized, he will be awakened early in that timeline. Then you will have a big fight, and finally, kill him. The audience felt a headache, and their minds were about to be confused by this timeline and that timeline. But Yi Bai did not go into this question. He said to Ningluo, "Why did you choose this time point dragon?" Ningluo said honestly, "Because we found that the source of the timeline disturbance is here." Yi Bai shook his head and said, "No, the timeline disturbance should have been earlier, that is, in the past modified by Wolverine." Ningluo was silent for a while. It did not lie, but just concealed some facts. After finding that it could not be concealed, it finally said, "We found two nodes of time disturbance. The first one is now, and the second one is when Mystique was captured just after the Leap War ended. But like mutants, we cannot physically travel through time. All we can travel to this era is our data. At the time Mystique was captured, there was no equipment capable of carrying our data. But at this point in time, the mother machine for creating the Sentinel robots has already been built, so we first transferred the data of the Sobo to the mother machine of the Sentinel robots." The comment area was once again heatedly discussed, with the activity reaching 60%. Angel King Kesha. Although it may be a bit ridiculous for me to say this, I think the time in this world is as stable as the time in our world. It won't keep splitting up into parallel universes. It's just that constantly traveling through and modifying the timeline is a headache. 670 Wisdom Star God Boshizen. Ninlu has already left the category of machinery and has become a mechanical life. The consciousness of life is really amazing. It can break free from the constraints of time. I originally thought that the only thing that could escape the bondage of time was gravity. Iron Man. Gravity can also travel through time. I now feel more and more that time is like a colander. Or we should set up a time management department to prevent people from messing up time. Who knows what will happen then? Flash. If we just modify some bad things, wouldn't the world be a better place? In our original future, if I hadn't reversed time, wouldn't we have lost? Batman. That time was okay. After all, the time interval was so short. If it takes a little longer, under the butterfly effect, no one knows what will happen if the timeline is modified, it might be better. But it is more likely to get worse. March 7th. Flash, you don't want to travel through time to do anything. Flash. No, no. Yi Bai asked again, who is Bastion? Ning Lu said, Bastion is the mother machine of the future Sentinel robot. At first, its data was transmitted back to the Sentinel robot mother machine of this world. So the Sentinel robot mother machine that was shut down by humans was activated, and then my consciousness was transmitted back, and my body was also created by it. It simply knows everything and says everything. The main thing is that mechanical life is very rational. After it was sure that it couldn't beat Yi Bai, it didn't hold back. Everything it did was just to survive. At this time, Yi Bai looked at everyone and said to the light screen, the audience may feel a little dizzy after seeing this, let me sort it out. In fact, there are only two timelines in this world now. The first timeline is the one where Wolverine did not modify the past. In this timeline, the mutants fought the Sentinels for 100 years, and in the end the Sentinels won and the mutants were destroyed. The second timeline is the timeline in which Wolverine modified the past timeline and prevented the birth of the Sentinel robot. In that timeline, there were no Sentinels, you defeated Apocalypse, and had a decent relationship with humanity, but in both timelines, mutants eventually perished. The mutants, who were in high spirits before, were stunned when they heard this. If we had not prevented the birth of the Sentinel robots, it would be understandable that we were perished by the Sentinel robots. But if we succeeded in preventing the birth of the Sentinel robots, why would the mutants still die out? Yi Bai continued, you already know the timeline with the Sentinel robots, where the mutants eventually perished. Then let's look at this timeline where you successfully prevented the creation of the Sentinel robots. You did successfully transport Wolverine's consciousness into the past, and he sought help from a young Professor X and Magneto. But the scene switches. It's the mutant school, but it's in ruins, with the sign falling to the ground. Wolverine walked into the school, knocked on the door, and saw the beast. He was refused entry, so he broke in. Then he saw Professor X, who was disheveled and drunk. Wolverine told Professor X why he came, but Professor X had now lost his telepathic ability and didn't believe him. Beast told Wolverine that because of Raven's departure, he was paralyzed, and with the outbreak of the Leap War, all the students of the mutant school were sent to the front line. So Professor X was very depressed at this time. Wolverine could only tell them Professor X's secrets, and Professor X finally believed him. So Wolverine told them everything about the future. At the beginning, the Sentinel robots only targeted mutants. But later, they began to identify mutant genes in ordinary people, and those who might give birth to mutant offspring. They were also killed or captured by the Sentinel robots. Hearing this, the people on Earth were broken. If what Yi Bai said before only made them start to think about whether they needed to be so cruel to mutants, then now they are extremely angry. After all, arresting mutants has nothing to do with them, but if even people carrying recessive mutant genes are to be arrested or killed, they cannot accept this. Who knows if there are hidden mutant genes in their bodies? So the people who took to the streets before protested again, demanding that the government shut down the Sentinel project. Unfortunately, the Sentinel project has long been beyond the control of the government. They can't do anything. Comment area. Tathagata. Heaven's will can be resisted, but self-inflicted evil cannot be survived. Iron Man. The boomerang hits your head, and now you feel the pain. But the relationship between mutants and humans is really hard to coordinate. He felt a headache when he thought about it. Angel King Kesha. Indeed, there are two races on a planet. One race is large in number and has outstanding wisdom, while the other race is small in number but has great power. They will inevitably be wary of each other and find it difficult to trust each other. This is a bit like the dark forest chain of suspicion. Luo Ji. It is difficult for two countries on Earth to trust each other. They will be wary of each other, let alone two races with such a big gap. It is indeed difficult to live in harmony, but it is not as scary as the dark forest of suspicion. After all, they can communicate. Young Professor X was finally persuaded by Wolverine to stop the birth of the Sentinel robots, but they were short of manpower, so they asked Magneto for help. At that time, Magneto was locked up for suspected murder of the president. It was just that Professor X injected a drug that could cure his paralysis, but made him lose his telepathic ability. So, Wolverine found Quicksilver, and with the help of Quicksilver, he rescued Magneto. The audience enjoyed Quicksilver's solo show. Comment section. Wanda. His nickname is also Quicksilver. The same name. And super speed too. Although this Quicksilver looks completely different from his brother, his name and abilities are exactly the same. Evil god Loki. Could it be the isotope from a parallel universe? How amazing. I really want to see if the Thor in the parallel universe is so stupid. Thor. You are such a sissy, you must be a girl in the parallel universe. The two started to quarrel with each other again. Paimon. Wow, so amazing. Is this the world in the eyes of you speedsters? It's like time has stopped. Angel King Keisha. Such power is almost invincible. Aizen. Psychic power is still better. The scene switches. Mystique transforms into a general of South Vietnam and sneaks into the venue. However, she is discovered by Bolivar's mutant detector. Mystique attacks on the spot and is about to kill Bolivar. At this time, Wolverine and three others come in and stop her. Mystique was stunned and was hit by a taser by Stryker, who was Bolivar's assistant at the time. The professor pulled out the electrodes and said to her happily, "We are here to save you, Eric and I are together." Mystique thought that the two of them had reconciled, and she was very happy. But at this time, Magneto pointed a gun at Mystique. This shocked Professor X. What are you going to do? Magneto said, "Protect our future." Sorry, Mystique, as long as you are still alive, we will be in danger at any time. Mystique escaped, but was shot in the leg by Magneto. The Furious Beast and Magneto fought in front of people. In the end, Magneto and Professor X parted ways again. Bolivar obtained Mystique's DNA from Mystique's blood and began his own research. The comment area exploded again. Master Ancient One. Sometimes I really doubt whether fate really exists. They are clearly trying their best to prevent that future, but because of their efforts, that future is happening. Originally, she never believed in predetermined fate, because with the time stone, she could see many futures and knew the uncertainty of the future. But at this moment, she began to doubt whether fate was fixed despite many possibilities. There were many strong people in the comment area, but seeing the words of the Ancient One, they could not help but shudder. Thanos. If this is the case, is my fate also predetermined? This is terrifying to think about. Dr. Zune of the intellectual star god. So I have been calculating the universe, and I have been trying to confirm whether the universe is truly accidental. If there is, then fate is not predetermined. Mr. Mystery thought. You are not confirming the contingency, you are killing the contingency. Batman. In order to protect the future of mutants, Magneto, you really can kill anyone. Yi Bai said. Fate is so wonderful. Originally, the US military looked down on Bolivar's Sentinel Plan, but because of this incident, they agreed to the Sentinel Plan. Magneto found the Sentinel robots in advance. At that time, the Sentinel robots were still very primitive. He added countless steel wires to the robots to control them. In order to prevent Magneto from killing Mystique and to prevent Mystique from killing Bolivar, Professor X refused to take medicine, sat in a wheelchair again, and regained his abilities. But he couldn't use the EEG device at that time. So Wolverine let him read his memory, hoping to use his memory to enlighten him. Wolverine's real body is still in the future, so the young Professor X has a wonderful conversation with his future self through this conscious connection. In the picture, the two Professor X looked at each other and smiled. Charles. Then the young Professor X read the memory of the Sentinel robot in the old Professor X's mind, and his eyes became angry. This is our future, Eric is right. Humans have killed so many of our compatriots and want to completely wipe us out. We must fight back. The old Professor X said. But we can prevent them from going down this path. The young Professor X was very surprised. Do you still have faith in them? The old Professor X said. Even if they make a mistake once, it does not mean that they will fall into the wrong path forever. Sometimes we all need a hand. The scene freezes here. The comments section exploded again, with the activity reaching 76%. Thanos. Really? Isn't it because of a lot of luck that you were able to change the past this time? If you were unlucky, how many times have you died? Luo Ji. I really can't understand why you base the survival of your own race on your faith in humans. You know, the biggest problem of humans is that they always make the same mistakes. Angel King Kesha. As a leader, you are really unqualified. Uchiha Madara. If I were a mutant, I would never follow you. No matter how powerful you are, you can't bring a future to your race. Seeing the criticism in the comment area, Professor X had no choice but to smile bitterly. Yi Bai said to Professor X, at that time, Magneto stopped the launch of the Sentinel robot and even wanted to kill the then President of the United States and declare war on humans. However, Mystique stopped Magneto, and X also saved the US President under your persuasion. Because of the goodwill shown by the mutants, the Sentinel project was abolished, and the Sentinel robots were not created in this timeline. Professor, although you succeeded, I think a lot of luck played a role. What do you think? Professor X said, you are right. But if we let Magneto lead the mutants to fight against humans, then the Sentinel robot will inevitably be born. We are young and our abilities are far from being so strong. When the war begins, we will definitely win. That was our best choice at the time. Hearing this, those who had previously criticized Professor X fell silent. They had to admit that Professor X had some truth in what he said. Mutants are really difficult. Yi Bai nodded and said, indeed, you are right. Later, you defeated the resurrected apocalypse, saved the world, and the relationship between humans and you became better. But when you let down your guard against humans, their attack comes again. There is a company called. They invented a genetically modified food and spent decades making their food available all over the world. If it is an ordinary person, it will be fine to eat this kind of food, but if a mutant eats this kind of food, his ability will be gradually suppressed. So, the mutants gradually disappeared. You also have Alzheimer's disease. At the last mutant council you went ill and killed all the mutants present. In the end, you only have Wolverine by your side to take care of you. Hearing this, the comment area exploded again. The activity level directly reached 90%. More than 10,000 nuclear bombs bombarded the Earth, causing the entire continental shelf to deviate by a full meter and causing continuous earthquakes. Fortunately, these nuclear bombs exploded in one place, and the location of the Sentinel robot base was originally very remote. But even so, countless humans were killed and injured. When the last nuclear bomb was detonated, a huge hole had been blasted out where the Sentinel robot base was originally located. The melted soil slowly cooled and turned into a piece of glass. Soon, Flash brought Sunspot to investigate here, and they concluded that the mother machine of the Sentinel robot had been destroyed. At the same time, at company, everyone's eyes were blank. But they were cloning mutants. After Yi Bai left, Professor X immediately asked Flash to take them to company. Professor X controlled everyone in the company, used their technology, and used the genes he left behind to clone the mutants who had died in the previous battle. The first clones were Cyclops Scott and Jean G. When the clones were mature, Professor X transferred their copied consciousness back to their bodies. The two opened their eyes with blank expressions. Professor X input everything that happened into their brains. Jean couldn't believe it. I actually killed the professor. So that's how it is, Professor, what are you going to do? The resurrected Jean seemed to have lost the power of the Phoenix. Professor X said, first, use the equipment of company to resurrect our compatriots. Then, negotiate with humans. We mutants want to establish our own country and join the United Nations. Mutants will no longer exist in this world as individuals, but as a nation. This is the normal way for a race to survive. Cyclops said, have we completely eliminated the Sentinel robots? Magneto said, it's not that easy. The Bastion has been here for some time. They might have built some backup bases. Besides, Nimrod still exists. Even if there is only one Sentinel robot, Ningluo, it is very difficult to deal with. It is a Sentinel robot army by itself. The battle is destined to be long, but we will win. Mr. President, this is what we mutants want. The President of the United States said angrily, what a joke, asking us to deal with the Sentinel robots. Why should we stand up for you? Professor X said in his mind, because you created them, and I doubt that the Sentinels will only hunt mutants. They won't kill humans, you stand a good chance. If you don't agree, I will kill you until a new president is willing to listen to my advice. Under this terrifying threat, the US president could only reluctantly agree to Professor X's proposal, and send troops to hunt down Nimrod. In the desert, a ray of sunlight shone into the cave. Thousands of years later, Apocalypse finally opened his eyes. He saw Professor X sitting in a wheelchair, and Professor X's voice rang in his mind. Apocalypse's eyes changed several times. Is that so? So you need my help to fight the Sentinel robots? The professor said. Yes. Apocalypse said. Okay, but I must lead the mutants. Professor X said. If you can win us. Behind Professor X stood Magneto, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine, Blink. With this lineup, they dared to fight even if the opponent was a god. Then the battle broke out. When Wolverine walked in front of Apocalypse under his attack and was about to cut off his entire head. Apocalypse finally said, you win. Because he couldn't guarantee what would happen if his head was cut off. Would a head grow on the body, or a body grow under the head, or would he just die? With the addition of Apocalypse, the strength of each mutant was raised to a higher level. This made them feel that they had a chance of winning even when facing the Sentinel robots. With the abilities of Magneto and Apocalypse, Mutant 187 quickly built a city in the sea. This city can float on the sea and its location is not fixed. When no one was around, Magneto finally couldn't help but say to Professor X, do you think we can win like this? We are just following the old path of the struggle timeline. The professor said, yes, we still can't win if we continue like this. Magneto said, then what's the point of doing this? The professor said, believe in human. Magneto was furious, do you still want to say that you believe in human stupid theories? The professor said, no, it is to believe in human wisdom. Everything is an illusion, I use it to confuse humans and Sentinel robots. My goal is still the void, borrowing the creation of the great compassionate Tree King. By leveraging the wisdom of the world's people, we can surely defeat the Sentinel robots. If humans can create Sentinel robots, they can certainly think of ways to defeat them. All we need is time. Professor X certainly does not have the power of the great compassion Tree King, but his psychic ability may not be comparable to that of gods. He borrowed the concept of the void and asked everyone in the world to help him think about how to fight the Sentinel robots when they fell asleep. You have to know that the creation of the Sentinel robots by humans was nothing more than Bolivar's pioneering work, and the people who came later made up for the shortcomings, which was just the wisdom of a small number of people. When the wisdom of all people in the world comes together to do something, how terrible power will be exerted, no one knows. Yi Bai retracted his gaze, and he couldn't help but sighed. When Professor X was no longer so naive and went all out, how powerful the power that burst out was. The reason why he left after the interview was that he was worried that after the invincible time, Professor X could read his thoughts in his mind, which would be a lot of fun. Now Yi Bai is not worried about physical attacks and energy attacks, but he is not sure how much role his mental power can play in resisting mental attacks. In the final analysis, he does not know enough about mental power. Although he has not seen the result yet, he is sure that the mutants will win in this new timeline. Because since the existence of human beings, no one has ever been able to integrate the wisdom of all people on a planet like Professor X. This made him very curious about what the world would look like in the end. Then, Yi Bai opened his panel. Host: Yi Bai. This live broadcast activity, 100%. Activity level 90%. Reward: World Origin to be claimed. Activity 100%. Additional reward: Detailed explanation of spiritual power to be claimed. Worlds you can visit: Marvel Universe observable, Naruto observable, The Boys observable, Bleach observable, Genshin Impact observable, 3-Body observable, Collapse Planet Railway observable, Justice League observable, Battle of the Twin Cities observable, Journey to the West 1986 observable, Super Seminary observable, X-Men observable. Close corner bracket. Complete an interview and unlock a new world. The film and television series, Harry Potter. Close double angle bracket. Already have the following abilities: S-level telekinesis, brain power development tree diagram, space jump, truth or dare, 100% bare-handed catching of blades, King's Game, supreme cheating technique, I'm rooting for you, Kuroko basketball, crazy man and resentful woman, Magpie Bridge, spiritual midwifery, spiritual mentor, eye of cause and effect. Another ray of the origin of the world. Although the rewards are the same, Yi Bai is still very satisfied. After all, this thing is a disposable consumable. As for detailed explanation of spiritual power, this is not a skill, but something like an academic document, which describes the nature of spiritual power in detail. After Yi Bai received it, its content appeared in his mind, and he couldn't forget it even if he wanted to. For Yi Bai, this was like a pillow when he was sleepy. He was worried that he didn't understand the nature of spiritual power well enough. After understanding this, he would no longer worry about being read by Professor X, or even being controlled. Afterwards, Yi Bai and Funina held a banquet and invited the 7 gods of Teyvat and their dependents, the Traveler brothers and sisters, came to the banquet together. The banquet was just a side event, the most important thing was to use mental midwifery on them. In the previous few chats with the 7 gods, the feedback from the spiritual mentor on the physical side had increased his lifespan by hundreds of years. The feedback on the spiritual level, combined with the development of brain power by the brain power development tree diagram, allowed him to take his ability to control the microscopic world with telekinesis to a new level. It even increased the strength of his telekinesis by hundreds of tons. So just chatting with the 7 gods was not enough for him, so he invited more people. The number of people should be a little more, but not too many, because mental midwifery is only effective one-on-one each time. What? Did you keep the peach sapling alive? Yi Bai stared at Nashida with his eyes wide open. He didn't have much hope at first. After all, the laws of the 2 worlds were only 5% the same. But Nashida managed to keep the peach sapling alive in such a short time. Although it is still a long way from blooming and bearing fruit, it was far beyond his expectations. Nashida, it's all thanks to the inspiration I got when chatting with you. Is this the function of mental midwifery? Yi Bai seemed to have found the correct way to use mental midwifery. Then he tested it and found that the laws of the 2 worlds were already 10% the same. Is this the reason for injecting the origin of the world into this world? Ye Shenzi smiled and said, "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Yi Bai. Every time Ying chats with Mr. Yi Bai, he says he has gained a lot. So I also shamelessly attended this banquet, hoping to see if I could comprehend something from Mr. Yi Bai's words." Hearing this, Zhongli said, "I originally thought it was my illusion, but I didn't expect that everyone has this feeling. Mr. Yi is really a scholar, and a casual conversation can give us great insights. Lei Dianying said, not only that, I feel that my strength has increased a lot recently, several times stronger than before. Fukulos said, I feel the same way. Fukulos is still alive. She and Funina are two sides of the same coin, but they are still one person after all. Therefore, she also has some special affection for Yi Bai. Master Luyunjifeng. Me too, and recently there are more wild cranes in the mountains who have become enlightened. As long as they are taught well, in a few years, Liu will have another batch of immortals. Haha, it seems that this strand of world origin is not wasted. Then, it is better to invest the world origin obtained this time in Teyvat. After a few more investments, this world will belong to me. Why Yi Bai chose this world is also reasonable. Nuo Qian Jiao, this world is not big, but not small. It is just suitable for training. If it is a world like Marvel, a strand of world origin thrown in may not cause much splash. Wendy took a sip of the immortal wine that Yi Bai brought from the heavenly palace. Although it is not in the same world, most of its effects have disappeared, but there are still a lot. More importantly, it tastes good. He sighed, I wonder how the mutants are doing now. He also sympathized with the experience of the mutants. Those mutants who fought hard always reminded him of his best friend. Yi Bai simply told everyone what Professor X did, which made everyone excited. They all felt that this time the mutants should be able to get rid of the crisis of destruction. Since it was mentioned, Yi Bai opened his observation interface and displayed the situation of other worlds in front of everyone. While watching and bragging, chatting and playing. Super God World. Kesha had academic exchanges with mutants in the comment area before, and she got a lot of data about mutant genes from Professor X. After some research, she and Hechi were stunned. Angel Yan on the side said in surprise, what's going on? She is a combat angel and does not understand these studies deeply enough. Kesha shook her head and said, after listening to the description of the professors before, I thought they were naturally evolved. But now it seems that their genes are not like natural evolution, but artificial. Angel Yan, are they artificially created? Thinking of the magical abilities of mutants, the one-winged angels were stunned. They had only seen the abilities of a few mutants before, and they were already in full bloom, which was too strong. If their genes are artificial, then who created the mutants? If the creation is so strong, then how strong must the creator be? Could it really be the god of creation? Kesha nodded. There are only data and no samples, but the possibility of artificiality is very high. And their genetic potential is very, very huge. Even though the rules of our two worlds are different, we can still gain a lot of knowledge from their genes. The communication time is limited, and the data we obtained is not comprehensive enough. Some genetic samples would be nice. At this time, the angel Juxin said, I can obtain genetic samples of mutants. The angels were shocked again and looked at her in surprise. They all knew that Juxin was very good at academics, but she said that she could obtain genetic samples of mutants, which was too outrageous. We are not in the same universe, okay. Kesha's eyes lit up. Is it the mysterious grand prize? Juxin nodded. That is a two-world exchange instrument, which can designate a person from another world to communicate and exchange items. But it can only be used once. Keisha said decisively. Then contact Professor X. Professor X, who was busy with the establishment of the mutant nation at this time, received the communication from Juxin. He was surprised and said, Miss Juxin. Can you contact me? Did you angels find a way to come to our world? Angel Juxin said. No. I got the mysterious prize, and I can make a deal with you. We hope to obtain enough mutant gene samples. In exchange, we can exchange the research data on super genes with you. Queen Kesha said that although the laws of our two worlds are different, our research should be able to give you some help. The professor did not hesitate at all. Yes. Then he used all the mutants' gene samples to make an exchange with the angel Juxin. Anyway, everyone is not in the same universe, and exchanging gene samples will not have any effect on mutants. Seeing this, Nashida sighed. It would be great if we could connect the two worlds and help each other. If they can open a channel between the two worlds and have angels to support the mutants, it won't be that difficult for them. Yi Bai said, your idea is still too naive. I can help them build a bridge of communication. Let the two universes travel freely, but what will happen? Zhang Li said, if two completely different worlds are connected, there is a high probability that a war will occur. Yi Bai nodded. Yes. If the two worlds are connected, then there is a great probability that the super god world will be wiped out soon. After all, even in the movie universe, the world of X-Men and the world of Avengers are the same worldview. Even in the movie universe of the Avengers, the Celestials and Eternity have appeared. Fukaro said, is Queen Kesha's judgment correct? Yi Bai nodded and said, yes, mutants were created by gods called the Celestials, and they are some very powerful gods. In the previous interview, he did not mention the Celestials or the Phoenix Force. The main reason is that he did not want to put too much pressure on humans on Earth. The mutants have already put a lot of pressure on them. If they mention these again, it is hard to say what humans will do under too much pressure. The gods were amazed. The Queen of Winter asked, did the Celestials create such powerful mutants and then ignore them? If the Celestials would pay attention to mutants, they wouldn't be in the situation they are in now. Yi Bai laughed. They have created so many powerful races. Thanos' original race was created by them. Creating galaxies, creating life, they never get tired of it. Then Yi Bai opened the observation interface of the Star Iron universe. The first thing he looked at was the God of Plenty. He found that the peach seedlings cultivated by the God of Plenty were also successful, and even peaches had grown on them. But the peaches always looked a little weird. Could it be that the peaches were also led astray by the abundance? In fact, the God of Memory is the one that interests him the most in this world, because the other gods are all philosophical concepts. But what philosophy does the God of Memory represent? Yi Bai really can't say. Isn't memory a phenomenon? He had gone to see the God of Plenty alone before, but he was a little worried about going directly to see the God of Memory. With Pengu, who evolved from the fragments of the Great Tao Law, he can control all his information, but he still doesn't know much about memory. He is afraid that when he meets the God of Memory, he will be read by him. Take the memory. He had the same worry as when facing Professor X. Then he put the observation object on Aha, the God of Joy, and Clipper, the God of Protection. With Aha's help, on the side, Clipper's wall building project progressed slowly, which made him very angry. He would never be careless in building the wall, but in order to get rid of Aha, he took the time to swing the empty hammer more than a dozen times. It didn't take long before more than 10 amber ages passed. Then Yi Bai put the observation object on the train group. They were eating, drinking and having fun in Luofu. They were very happy. It seemed that they had not set off for Pinocchio yet. Then Yi Bai opened the observation interface of the Avengers. A group of Avengers looked at the device created by Iron Man and Dr. Banner and said in surprise, "What is this?" Iron Man said, "This is a device that can travel to a parallel universe." Captain America was stunned. "Is this possible?" Iron Man nodded. "We saw the world of mutants before, and that world is too similar to ours. There is even a Quicksilver there, so I am sure that world is a parallel world split from our universe. If we use Quicksilver as an anchor, we can go to that world. I think if I could go to that world, I could provide some help to the mutants." Seeing this, Nashida sighed. "Iron Man, he is so strong. Seeing them, I feel that I am not worthy of the name of the God of Wisdom." Yi Bai smiled and said, "It's not that your name is not worthy of the name, it's that you haven't been exposed to enough knowledge in this area. Moreover, the laws of the world are different, and the knowledge of their world may not be suitable for this universe." Luyun Jifeng Zhenjin said, "I didn't expect that this Iron Man is so chivalrous and wants to help mutants even though they are so far away." Yi Bai said, "Indeed, in the original future, he saved the world several times regardless of his life. In the end, he sacrificed his life to save the universe. You may not be able to imagine that he was originally a playboy, an arms dealer, and had been selling his weapons to the military. Later he woke up, and he has been working hard to save the world. I think he has a sense of redemption. Iron Man still needs to debug this device, and he doesn't have much confidence in whether it will work." Just when Yi Bai wanted to switch to other worlds, something strange happened. A figure suddenly appeared in the Avengers building. Captain America reacted very quickly and threw a shield, but the man caught it in one hand. Everyone looked closely and found that it was Wolverine. Everyone was stunned. Wolverine could actually go to a parallel universe. Nashida said, is it the mysterious grand prize? Yi Bai couldn't help scratching his face. Yes, the mysterious grand prize he drew is the two-world teleporter. You can teleport to parallel universes, but you can only use it 3 times. Funina was very curious. What does he want to do? Yi Bai laughed. I don't know. In the picture, Wolverine saw the person in front of him clearly and was also very surprised. Have I come to your world? Iron Man punched his palm. Is this the mysterious gift you got? It's amazing that it can actually allow you to travel to our world. But you came to our world. What do you want to do? Wolverine's eyes dimmed. It was the professor. After knowing that I received such a mysterious gift, the professor asked me to come to the parallel universe. He asked me to bring mutant genes to this world. If mutants fail in the end, there is still a possibility of starting over in other worlds. Everyone was silent. Just looking at this, you can see how much pressure the Sentinel robots have brought to mutants. Professor X, a super strong man, even thought of this way out. The Avengers are really willing to help mutants out of trouble. But if a large number of mutants appear in their own world, they may not accept it. After all, not every mutant is a good person. Among mutants, there are guys like Black Emperor and Apocalypse who want to destroy the world and rule the world, and guys like Magneto who want to make trouble from time to time. Iron Man said, okay, you can come to our world, which means that it is possible to travel to parallel universes. We would love to provide you with some help, but Wolverine said, I understand that no world would welcome the arrival of an alien race. I am already very satisfied that you are willing to help. Seeing this, Yi Bai couldn't help but feel emotional. The Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men Cinematic Universe have always had a trend of uniting. You should know that the MCU logo has already appeared in the clip of X-Men Dark Phoenix. Now it seems that the linkage between the two universes is inevitable, and even without my intervention, this thing is bound to happen. So wish them good luck. Then Yi Bai and the gods observed other universes together. In the Naruto world, the Ninja Alliance was finally established. Although they stumbled, they finally embarked on the right path. In the journey to the West world, because Yi Bai intervened, the journey to the West was shelved, and Monkey King was ignored, so he returned to Wagwo Mountain and happily became the Monkey King, and nothing big happened in other worlds. The gods and their families were satisfied to see these subsequent, chasing shows, and the banquet it was very lively. The feedback from Yi Bai's spiritual mentor allowed him to live another 200 years, and his spiritual power and control over the microscopic world were greatly improved. After finishing these, he released a preview of the next interview. He was going to interview the world of the Wandering Earth. Then he prepared the interview materials and went to the Wandering Earth world. After Moss's calculations and some parameter modifications, times they obtained the grand unified theory of this world. Human basic science has made a big step forward. According to the grand unified theory, space jumps are feasible, and superluminal flight is also feasible. As long as they study diligently, they will be able to build spaceships that can space jump or superluminal flight in 100 years at most. This made all the senior executives cheer. After all, there are too many variables in a wandering career of more than 2,000 years. In the digital space, two consciousnesses are talking. Is the grand unified theory you proposed really correct? Yes, it is mainly because the idea is correct, and with the original formula as a reference, it is relatively simple to deduce. Then will you destroy humanity? Moss has never thought of destroying humans, but humans will destroy themselves. Digitalization of life is the most suitable choice, even if a grand unified theory is obtained. We will wait and see. Speaking of which, the host has released a preview of the interview. What kind of changes will his interview bring to the world? Calculating this kind of future is beyond my ability. In the DC Watcher world, a figure shattered in front of Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan murmured, the mutants' genetic data is incomplete, and the laws of the two worlds are also different. It is impossible to create mutants at this stage. I'm really looking forward to the next interview. Finally he paused and said to himself, is there any point in creating mutants? Humans will still attack each other, create humans with powerful superpowers, and may even destroy humans ahead of time. Calculating this result made him a little anxious. If he hadn't had a little bit of ties to the human world, he would have left the Earth and headed for the universe to explore the ultimate mysteries of the universe. Harry Potter World. Dumbledore looked at the live broadcast preview in front of him and murmured, "What on earth is this?" He has confirmed that this thing has nothing to do with magic and Voldemort. So when the live broadcast preview time is about to come, he stayed alone in the wilderness. In this way, even if there is danger, it will not affect Hogwarts. Finally, the time is up. Death. The trailer turned into a light screen, revealing Yi Bai in the Dark Universe. Liu Peijiang was very surprised, because the subject of this interview was him, and he and a group of senior executives had made full preparations. But he didn't expect Yi Bai not to appear in front of him at the first time. The audience flocked to the comment area, and a group of scientists once again exchanged their gains in these days, as well as various difficult problems. Everyone is very enthusiastic about Iron Man's parallel universe crossing device. At this time, Yi Bai said, "Dear audience friends, long time no see, how are you all?" In the past, I would go straight to the interviewee and get straight to the point, which is of course good. But sometimes I feel a little rushed. Let's talk about it first. Ladies and gentlemen, many of the worlds you live in have experienced various disasters. If the sun in your world ages rapidly and begins to expand wildly, in 100 years at most, it will expand to the point where it engulfs your planet. In 300 years the entire galaxy will no longer exist. The nearest star to you is 45 light-years away. What would you do? The premise is that there are no gods in this world, nor are there superheroes with superpowers. You don't have a lightspeed spacecraft. The speed of your spacecraft is about the same as the first fleet of the Trisolarans. You have mastered the heavy nuclear fusion technology. Comment area. Luo Ji, how can there be such an unlucky civilization? How can the solar decay be completed in such a short time? I suspect someone is attacking them. Iron Man, this is even more unlucky than the Trisolarans. What can we do? Build a spaceship and escape. As much as possible, the best is best. If we are lucky, we can find Yiwan's planet. Jinx, there will definitely be a war first, because the only ones who can escape are the rich ones. Those poor people have to fight for their lives. Joker, you are right, this world is hopeless, wait for death. Spade. Escape. Where can they escape to? The nearest star system is 4 light-years away, it will take 400 years to run there. Can the spacecraft really support the consumption of such a civilization for 400 years? And are there planets in another galaxy? Even if there are, can they survive on this planet? Escaping on a spaceship is almost certain death. The only way is to stay on the planet and do our best to conduct scientific research, hoping for a technological explosion, build a light-speed spacecraft or master space technology. Whether you can survive depends on luck. The star god of wisdom, Bashizan, my opinion is the same as the last time in the three-body world, we should focus on developing the technology of uploading and downloading consciousness. Convert everyone's consciousness into data, build more spaceships to escape, and make more data backups. If you are lucky enough, you can find a new planet and survive. Because of this, during the escape, the consumption is the least and the tolerance rate is the highest. Angel King Keisha. This situation is rare. I think Luo Ji may be right. This may be an attack. Uchiha Madara. Compared with these, the crisis facing our world does not seem so terrible. Laojun. I took the time to learn about your world before, and found that it is really magical. Jinwu is actually a huge fireball. It's amazing. Then Yi Bai adjusted the angle of the light curtain, and a planet appeared in the light curtain. At first, the audience didn't feel anything, but soon the audience found something wrong. Professor X. No, what is the light spot at the equator of this star? Superman. Am I dazzled? Why do I see the dark side of that planet, shining with blue light spots? Aizen. How can you be dazzled? That's what I see. What did the people of this world do to their planet? 0. I have a very magical guess, but even though I have seen so many civilizations, I have never seen such a thing. My head is a little dizzy. Batman. Although it sounds incredible, I feel like those light spots are pushing their planet forward. Homelander. This is too absurd. How could this happen? Isn't it said that there are no gods or superpowers in this world? Yi Bai said. You guessed right, this is a parallel Earth. Faced with this crisis, they chose to push the Earth away from the solar system, and then go to the nearest star system. The comment area exploded, and the activity level soared to 30%. Angel Keisha. How is this possible? How much power does it take to push a planet? Can their civilization do this? Thanos. Wow. If they have this technology, why don't they escape in a spaceship? GZ. I have traveled the universe on the Star Train and seen many civilizations, but this is the first time I have seen a civilization that can do this feat. Dr. Manhattan. I thought I would no longer be surprised. When I saw this thing, I was so surprised that I couldn't close my mouth. Iron Man. I just did a quick calculation. If this is the case, then the Earth will have to travel in the universe for about 1,000 to 3,000 years. Is this possible? Luo G. Wait, you said parallel Earth, and then the star system closest to them. That's the home of the Trisolarans, right? Fireworks. I already have a picture in my mind. When the planet encountered the Trisolarian fleet on the road. Trisolarans, where are you going? Earthlings, go to your homes, what about you? Three-body people, go to your house. Then both sides stared at each other, which was really funny. The audience in the comment area has seen a lot of big scenes. What about killing half of the population of the universe, destroying the entire universe, destroying galaxies, destroying planets, and so exaggerated? Pushing a planet is actually just a small scene. They have seen Bu Liren's Chongsang before. It is a tree-shaped planet flying in the universe. It also has Dyson sphere technology and can perfectly absorb the energy of the sun. Isn't this technology content much higher than Wandering Earth? However, the shock they bring to people is different. Chongsang is a gift from God, so it is normal to be so magical. There are no gods or superpowers in the world of Wandering Earth. Their technology can't even build a light-speed spacecraft. But they are going to push a planet away from its original galaxy and go to another galaxy. This is a feat that no one has ever seen. Just like you are alone, you push a 1-ton boulder, and others see it, at most, say, oh, not bad. But if a group of ants want to push a 1-ton boulder around the Earth, then you will be like the audience now, shocked. The comment section was still very lively, with viewers expressing their opinions one after another. Yi Bai smiled and said, the scene described by Miss Huahuo is indeed interesting. But there are no Trisolarans in this universe, and the 3 galaxies over there are not doing disordered Trisolaran motion. It's very stable. But this matter does sound outrageous, so let me first interview the people of this world about their views on this plan. After saying this, Yi Bai disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared in the underground city of the Wandering Earth. Similarly, the people of the entire Wandering Earth were watching this interview, and even the top leaders had announced it before. So although Yi Bai's sudden appearance made the people nervous, there was no particularly outrageous riot. Yi Bai looked at a girl and said, what's your name? The girl said, Han Duoduo. Seeing this sudden alien, she was so nervous that she didn't even dare to blow bubble gum. When she heard Yi Bai's question, she nervously swallowed the bubble gum. Yi Bai said again, what do you think of the Wandering Earth plan? Han Duoduo said with a distressed look, me. What do I think? I have no opinion. Anyway, I won't live that long, so what happens in the future has nothing to do with me. Then Yi Bai asked other people around him. Someone said, I want to speak, but can I not show my face? Yi Bai covered his face and said, of course. The person whose face was covered said, I think it's a conspiracy. The solar helium flash is impossible. The government wants to completely control the world through this extreme means. Yi Bai smiled and said, don't you think this sounds a bit outrageous? Those rich and powerful people live well on Earth, why did they do this? Asking for trouble. The person said, it's said to be a conspiracy, so they must have let the Earth go around in space and then go back. What wandering for thousands of years is nonsense. He said it confidently and believed in his words. Yi Bai gave the screen to another person who wanted to speak, and also covered his face. The man said, of course the digital life plan is the best. Didn't someone say so in your comment area before? By uploading our consciousness to the internet, we can even achieve immortality. In this way, only a few spaceships are needed to take humans away. This way, the consumption of materials is minimal, and it is also the most likely to succeed. It's a pity that the people above are so stupid. What kind of wandering Earth plan are you going to make? Wandering in the universe for thousands of years and reaching another galaxy. Do you believe they can do it? That's ridiculous. Then Yi Bai asked the third person. The person said, I support the Wandering Earth project, because we are a civilization based on the planet. Without this planet, we are like a tree without roots. Although this journey is difficult, in my opinion, it is the only possibility for our civilization to continue. After hearing these words, the comment section also began to debate whether the Digital Life Plan or the Wandering Earth Plan was more reliable. Then Yi Bai turned to the screen and said, we roughly interviewed the public about their opinions. Now let's go interview this time's guest Mr. Lu Pijang. After saying that, Yi Bai disappeared again and appeared next to Lu Pijang. Yi Bai said to Lu Pijang, Mr. Lu Pijang, why do you support the Wandering Earth project? Lu Pijang said, in fact, I didn't agree with the Wandering Earth project at the beginning. I always felt that it was unreliable for a planet to drift in the universe for more than 2,000 years. But compared to the Digital Life Plan, I still prefer the Wandering Earth Plan. Because civilization without people is meaningless. Those who have watched the previous live broadcast know that they cannot speak in front of Yi Bai, so Lu Pijang answered truthfully. It's just that those experts asked him to guide the topic to what they wanted to ask at certain times. Yi Bai said, so, do you think that digital life that has gained immortality in the cyber world is not real life? Lu Pijang said, in my opinion, not. And it seems wonderful to gain eternal life in the cyber world. But from that moment on, humans will be confined to the internet. Everything is a simulation of information. We will be completely mastered by artificial intelligence and lose our perception of the real world. Such a civilization has no future. Yi Bai did not refute. He said, what do you think of Moss? Hearing this, most of the human beings in this world were surprised. Because in their eyes, Moss is just an artificial intelligence, just an auxiliary to the Wandering Earth project. Why would the host ask it such a question? In the eyes of the host, is Moss also a life? Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support our channel.